Okay, I'm live. I'm just gonna do a audio check for a second here. How you guys doing? Let's see. Gonna open up my chat. Hi, everyone. Hello. Hello, hello. Let me actually see. Hmm. How are you guys feeling today? Oops. Trying to log into my own website. There we go. Keep hitting the mic. Let me move this. There you guys are. How is everyone? How was it? I'm logging in. Doing good. Well, that's nice. That's nice. Really good. Hi, hi, hi. I am adequate. I am perfectly adequate. I am freezing. I turned down the heat in here, but it is now blasting cold. Okay. Let me see. Oh, it's not showing up in the library. Hmm, that's not good. I think I messed some. Oops. Give me a second. It looks like I messed something up on the website. Well, that's okay. I think it's probably gonna be that. Yeah. Hmm. Well, I guess that we'll do everything on YouTube today. I guess it's what's gonna have to be because I messed up something in the tech side of things. Let me see if I can update that, while I'm at it. Apologies for the wait. Hmm. Yeah, I think I'm gonna skip it. I'll just have to do it live because there's too much stuff I have to do tech-wise. To make sure that it just goes in the membership. So we'll just do everything live today. We'll do everything on YouTube today. Okay, let's see. Oh, that's really nice. I appreciate being your favorite, ENTJ. That's very appreciated. Okay, guys, how are you guys? Hello, hello, hello. Very cool. All right, so we're not going to do the only inside the members area, so that's fine. That's good. Then you guys get a free show today because I'm low on tech support. um, Today, I thought I would do an update of like what's been working for me, how everything's been going, kind of just the um, progress that I've made so far. Just wanted to give you guys kind of an update on everything. So yeah, all good stuff. Um, where I'm at, let's see. Let me give you like a quick, yes, the YouTube kids are going to get spoiled today. Absolutely. Um, all right. If we go along and we get any trolls, I'll invite any of you guys to be a moderator. But for now, I'm just going to get rolling. So progress so far, I would say I'm doing way better. I feel like I've gotten past the 51% line of processing and stuff like that. So I'm actually doing okay. I'm not 100%, but I'm making it. I'm happy. I feel like I finally got my brain back. I've got my thinker brain back, which is very peaceful for me. Most days there's still like that low level of cortisol that'll start in the morning. But the overall is better. Like I'm not crying anymore all day. So I'm doing really good. Panic attacks are gone. So yeah, I've been doing really, really good. So I did a slideshow to basically tell my future self how to get out of this, or where I'm at, what I'm learning. I'm just kind of putting like a marker in time of what's been working and stuff like that, and just sharing it with you guys so you guys can see my progress and what's going on. Yeah, so there you have it. I'll start with a slideshow, and then at some point I will pause and just go over to that Facebook post. I have a Facebook post, and I'll just start answering questions. Normally at that point I like to switch over and go into the membership. It's more private. I feel like I can talk more one-on-one, but I messed up I messed up the tech. So we'll be doing this just on the YouTube. And then what will happen is when it's done, I will then transfer it to the members area. So that'll still be live. It'll still be in the members area, but it'll be later tonight for, permanent or whatever. So there you go. All right, let's do this. Let's do my little slideshow that I've got here. Okay, actually, let me do this version. Here we go. Okay, so this is just my lessons. These are not, answers from God or anything. Don't pull out any, stone tablets to write these down as if they're coming from some kind of, guru or psychologist. I'm just a person that has gone through a pretty intense tidal wave in my life, and I am attempting to get some stability, get some learning lessons, and get myself through it. That's really all it is. So there's no like, oh my God, write these down or anything like that. I'll probably have this slideshow available in the live show. Puts down. Abby. I love you, Abby. Yeah, there you go. Put that away. I'm not speaking from a burning bush. My house is on fire, but I am not speaking from a burning bush by any means. So there you go. Yeah, that's really good. Yes, yes, yes. There you go. The title of the kind that we believe we can serve. Exactly. That's where I'm at right now. Definitely, I'm in the process of, sir. Yes, my last preface. I think it's also my demon masculine NT, where I'm like, warning, disclaimers, disclaimers, disclaimers. Because I know, like, I've heard I always hear the choir, the peanut gallery in my head, and it's just the 2%. But they're like, well, you said this one time in this one video, and I'm taking it as gold, and you better, you can't back down from that. So I get very, I get very sensitive when I start saying stuff like, I am not a professional. All right, so here you go. This is basically where I'm at. Let's see. Okay, so the first thing is the drug detox is normal. So I basically this entire month have spent just tons of hours watching as many videos as I possibly can on how to process grief, how to process loss, how to process breakups, how to process just the kinds of breakups and stuff like that. Just loss, because I've had just such a major tidal wave in my life where I got very much blindsided and lost a family. Like I lost a family, I lost a pathway, I lost a worldview. So there's a lot of things that I basically had to make it through. And the hundreds of videos that I watched, I got like little nuggets out of each video. So basically it's helped me along the way of processing and stuff like that. Made myself a whole playlist and everything that I would just kind of watch through. And yeah, I did take a look at like, oh, technically what does happen when you go from addiction to oxytocin. If you have oxytocin and dopamine levels just hitting every single day, where you have that in your life, and then you get hit with like all at once, cut that off. It is the same exact chemical process as a like heroin detox. So I did look that up. There are studies on it. And yeah, exactly, Matthew Hussey. I did watch quite a bit of Matthew Hussey, and then there's some like TED Talks on it. There's a lot of channels that talk a lot about it. So there's a lot of different kinds of ways to process this. Steven Speaks is great as well. So just a lot of information of all the INFJs, INFJs, and then some even ESFPs and ENTJs and stuff like that. Lots of information. So yeah, really good information. But yeah, one of the things I did realize is like, hey, this giant actual chemical tidal wave that I'm going through, me with feeling at the bottom, bad chemicals are terrifying if you have demon feeling. Now, I'm sure it's not great for those that are savior feelers either. It's not like they're like, yay, I love all these bad chemicals. It just happens to be the most terrifying thing ever if you happen to have feeling at the bottom. And then for me, it's feminine feeling. So it's just this like, oh my gosh, something is wrong. I'm not back to my thinking brain. If I don't have my thinking brain, I feel lost, and then of course, if it's bad chemicals, it's not great. So yeah, I was very much addicted to oxytocin and dopamine, and I was getting positive chemicals in that way every single day. So I had a very, very positive, connective thing, and then all at once was cut. So that's normal. It's okay it's going to take a long time. So yeah, very much. But what started happening is that, I'm now in a triggering state. And I talk a lot about the triggering cycles and the triggering stuff in my triggering live show. I have a whole live show on triggerings where I talk a lot about this. And it's exactly what it sounds like. Your body goes into an autonomic processing where it's basically warning you, like, hey, fight or flight, like, send the adrenaline, send the cortisol, pump it through your system. And then also, if it's a traumatic enough event, it will do some kind of damage to the neurons that go back and forth between your amygdala and your hippocampus. And that's basically what happened. It's you get set into a state where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm now in a trauma response. So your body just goes through that, and basically, like, it doesn't just stop doing that, because now it's like your brain stops trusting itself, because it was going along like, la la la, everything's fine, me and oxytocin were doing great, and then all of a sudden you get this event that'll happen, and now your brain has a hard time trusting itself. The hippocampus has memories that it's like, wait a minute, what just happened, that gets lost. And now the amygdala is like spinning, your chemicals, your feeling state. You're not able to kind of process the emotions normally in a healthy way. And that takes a lot of time to try and like resolve and like reconnect all these neurons and stuff like that. So for me, yeah, for me, the game then was like, okay, how do I make it through this first just stage of chemicals? So for the first 2 weeks, it was panic attacks, like all day, all night. Wasn't sleeping, all that kind of stuff. So it was the first 2 weeks. And then it was almost like to the day, the 1 month is when I got my brain back. And when I mean my brain, it's like my thinking brain, where the world started feeling a little bit more normal, where I wasn't quite in like a shock state. And it wasn't like every single morning I wasn't getting jolted awake with the adrenaline and stuff like that. So that's basically what happened as far as like time clockwise, right? And then also one thing that I kind of noted was like, hey, just because these chemicals are intense, that doesn't mean that my offense was just as intense. So like from my last Q&A that you guys saw me talking out stuff, in fact, the last two, it was very much like, I must have done something horrible. I'm in the wrong. I'm bad. Like my EJ self, my single decider swing, as well as like, oh my gosh, these demon feminine FI at the bottom, there's like so much pain there. I must have done something really bad to deserve this. And I think that that's where I had to like do a lot of resolving, because that's not necessarily true. But our brain wants to play some kind of intense event because of how bad the chemicals actually are. When it's literally, you'll get triggered by your last function. That's just how it goes. Everybody gets triggered by their last function. It's a pretty normal response. It doesn't necessarily mean the sky is actually falling, but that's kind of how it feels at times, Okay, so the healing process, what did I remove? Obviously, like, this is stuff that you hear kind of the same common 5 things in every single video. But yeah, the first one was cut off all contact to heal. And that means like every ounce of contact that you possibly can. For me, there's still some strings attached, because I literally still have I'm still paying for a house I'm not living in. So that sucks. And that's gonna, like, until I can cut that off, that's still going to be a background program that will be there, unfortunately. And yeah, I definitely got screwed there. I'm definitely going to be screwed out of probably $15,000 that I'm going to not get back, So it's like financially, not just financially, but emotionally, and a lot of hell there. And as soon as I can cut off 1 ounce of every single thing, then I'll start feeling 1% better. But that's every single time you have one of those things, it's like an open wound. You can't quite, it's like, let's stitch that up so you can start healing, So yeah. And also remove anyone around you who blames. This one's a really hard one for me, because I wanted to like bring everybody in, to try and stay in my fold to help me. But I also noticed that there's sometimes where people are going through their own stuff, they're not necessarily going to be able to be there for you 24/7. So I kind of noticed like, okay, the people that I'm talking to 24/7 that are really, really helping me 24/7 are people that are not going to then get triggered by me needing help. So whether whether it's your friends, whether it's your best friends or family or a therapist, make sure that the people who are around you are people that are not going to then also start getting triggered because they're not, they have things that they're going through in their own lives. I've noticed that that's kind of been like, oh, when you're upset, it kind of sets off other people that are upset. And then this last one is like breaking the bones to set them in the right way. So I got a lot of advice. I got just tons of emails and tons of DMs and stuff like that, and everybody telling me their ways of doing things. I'm like, oh, you handled your last stuff like my other, like the person in my life did. Like, yeah, you definitely cut them right out, just like my person did. And one thing I was kind of realizing is like I've seen people managing pain in very different ways, just getting like tons and tons of emails and stuff. And one thing that I would say is like, as hard as it is to stay open with the feminine feeling and stuff like that, to stay open, I feel like because I'm open until this thing actually resolves itself, that I'm not going to make the same mistakes, because I'm seeing that that is a possibility, that a lot of people will be like, how can I quickly end this as fast as possible? But then they don't necessarily actually learn the lessons that they need to for it. Like the good advice that I've been hearing is people being like, hey, it's okay. Healing takes time. The bad advice that I've been getting is like, you can just cut it off. I'm like, I don't think that that's necessarily going to help me for my next chapter. I don't think that that's something that I can do. I can't just absolutely turn it off, shut it off, close it out. Because that's basically what the person in my life was doing, is just absolutely turning it off. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly why this happened more than once in their life. Like I don't want this to happen more than once in my life. So I definitely don't want to turn that off before I've actually been able to learn as many lessons as I possibly can through it. So I see like some of these events as like breaking a bone, but a lot of times if you're just like smooth over that, like let's just distract, like cope and distract. I see that that's just a way of like solidifying a bone in the wrong direction, so that it'll happen again if you don't have any like learning lessons. It's not like, some of these things you do have to kind of cut it off, but like I do think that there's ways to do that where you're staying open until you can learn all the lessons from it. So anyways, healing add. Okay, so what did I add? Stabilizing sleep and food was the first thing I had to do. I am still eating the exact same meal. I've added avocado and I've added vitamins, but I'm literally eating the exact same meal. Is it the most stable meal? No, absolutely not. Eggs and English muffins and avocados every single day with orange juice. That's not a stable meal. It's not it's not all the food groups that I need. It's just the one that I can stomach. Some days when I have bad chemicals that come from the morning, it is very difficult to just put any food down my throat. Like the chemicals make you feel very like nauseous. So that's the one that works. And that's the one that I've been able to stabilize, and I stopped losing weight. So that's really good. Meditation 2 hours a day. This one is probably going to be the biggest one that I would say has actually done massive amounts of change. I think that's why I've been able to do okay in this first month. 2 hours of meditation a day. A lot of times it's done in the shower, but it is 2 hours of full meditation every single day. And what am I doing? Basically, the damage that was done to the amygdala and hippocampus, there's these questions that I'll realize are just these background programs that my brain is trying to puzzle constantly trying to resolve the information. And when you're hit with questions plus bad chemicals at the exact same time, the brain seems to want to just like, okay, let me cope. Let me go to sleep. Let me watch a program. Let me distract myself. Let me do whatever I can to just get away from these bad chemicals that are pumping through my system. So that is exactly what I just took head on, because I'm like, these aren't going to go away on their own. These spinning thoughts. I mean, I had racing thoughts. My brain would not stop, So I'm like, how do I actually go after this? Like, I need to actually stare at this while I'm feeling really, really bad. So you're just like, your whole body is feeling sick. And then you're just at that same time staring and going, what just set you off? Like what hit the hippocampus and amygdala? What are you guys freaking out about right now? What's that question? What's that missing information? What's the loss? And a lot of it for me as an EJ is like, where did I fail? Who am I a bad person? Why are they saying these things? Was everything a lie? That one hurts. like getting the chemical. Was everything a lie? And then trying to somehow take back the power of like, I thought I knew who I was. I thought I knew who they were. And a lot of what I'm finding out is that I did not know who they were. I wasn't taking all of the information in as a single decider, which I'll get to in a minute. I was not taking in all of the missing information. I was only seeing positive, and therefore missing a lot of what was really going on. So the meditation helped me to like stare at, okay, what exactly is it that is continuously triggering these, it's actually back here, the hippocampus and amygdala. What's going back and forth? What neurons got connected? What jarring trauma got connected, and then is like kind of a broken bone that is getting repeatedly broken again and again and again without getting set correctly. So it takes me a long time because my brain goes all over the place. Like I'll just be realizing that I have this like fantasy of this future conversation where I'm having where everything is getting resolved in some way. And I'll be like, wake up, hello, you're having this fantasy conversation, back up. Why am I having that fantasy conversation? What am I trying to resolve? What's missing? What's broken in me where I'm trying to gain? Like, what am I at a loss at? Am I feeling like I can't take back my identity anymore? Somebody took my identity away from me. They're saying that this is who I am. They're saying that this is what happened in the past, and it's not true, and it's not accurate, and it's not the whole of me. And like finding a way to get that back, like finding a way to like go after that and grab that back and decide that that's not true. That's not even, it's a percentage true, part of it's true, but like I'm just like trying to seek after it and find after it because I'm like, okay, like how am I going to get stable again to where I have hope again? Lost hope. And so it's with the meditation, it's like not only does it take me that long to focus, but also if I'm not doing this every single day, I can't quite get there because it won't happen on take one. Because those, first of all, the neurons take a long time to get, connected in the right way, as well as my brain won't believe it at first. It takes a long time for my brain to actually believe that and go along with that. So it just takes time again and again and again and again. Okay, try it again. What am I missing again? I don't believe in myself. And it still gives more power to the other person's words than it does my own. It still wants there to be some kind of resolve outside of myself. And so I just have to keep playing the game again and again and again. Support the right people, right stable people. My friend Melissa has just been an absolute godsend. She's just unbelievably amazing. She asks me every single day how my FI is doing. We chat and talk every single night. She has just been an absolute dream, an unbelievably amazing, stable person. Just one of those kind of people that just, yeah. And it's great because for a long time now, her and I have talked and I've gotten to help her with her family and her last animal and just positivity for her. And now it's like coming all the way back around where she's supporting me and helping me with my last animal and my struggles now. So it's just unbelievably very, very, very thankful. So yeah, I couldn't be more thankful for that relationship. Dave has given me a lot of audios where he's been helping me kind of see stuff, just good advice, just genuine good advice. So that's been really incredibly helpful as well. So just taking what I can get from people that are able to kind of reach out and support. So yeah, love that. Yeah, back to breaking the bones and setting in the right way. Stay open long enough to learn the lessons. That's been one that I'm seeing is that it hurts to stay open because again, the chemicals, like you want to just be able to delete it, but it doesn't go. And then hope. Hope is one that I definitely lost. I was kind of in this very stuck, empty state for a while, feeling very hopeless, very lost. And that one, I was worried that I wasn't going to get back. I definitely for a while thought I wasn't going to get hope back. And I was kind of concerned for a little bit that I wasn't going to have a positive, hopeful future. So that one just, it was just tiny, tiny things that started making things feel better, giving myself little tiny goals of like, okay, send an email today, get some of your taxes stuff done. So stuff like that really, like just one goal a day has been helpful to build back, like I am going to be happy again, those kinds of things. All right, next one here, giving up versus quitting. This one came from Davey. This was a concept that I think he learned from some like Delta Force guy that was going through training or something like that, where he was like going across the US and he got stuck in a mud field and very much like decided to give up. He decided to like tap out, but he was like, well, I can't just stay in this mud field. I'm like completely stuck. If the monsoon comes or whatever, I'll literally drown. So I just need to be able to somehow get out of this mud stuck and then get to that top hill, but I am going to tap out when I'm done. And like the irony of that was that the guy did end up getting out and getting to the top of the hill. And you're like, okay, so he gave up, but he didn't quit. He like didn't quit because I was getting very dark for a while. where I'm like, yeah, this sucks. Like, how am I going to be happy again? So I think that concept really helped me because there's plenty of times where I'm like, I am absolutely tapping out. I'm at the bottom. I'm at the bottom of the bottom of the bottom. Even when I thought I was at the bottom, I got to the bottom again, even more so. Just some of the hurtful words um, that I had to endure were just really painful. And just like the unfairness of the situation was just extremely painful. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to give up. I'm going to just tap out. I'm going to be okay that I am not anywhere near like because there's so many things that I put on my shoulders of things that I'm responsible for, these classes, um, just everything. Like there's a lot of stuff that I put on myself to make sure that I'm capable of doing. I'm like, yep, I'm gonna suck for a really long time. I'm not gonna be at my best for a really long time, but I can't quit. Like there is something in me where I don't really have an eject button. Like I don't. I know some people really struggle with that, but I think I did have some dark thoughts this month, but I'm just like, I can't. Like I don't have a reason to go that direction, I guess. So for me it was relieving to just let myself give up for a minute, tapping out but not actually ending anything, like quitting, leaving, whatever. Like I was like, this is just a absolute I don't know. It feels like you're in the ocean and you're just getting pummeled with one of these like washing machine waves. That's what it feels like. And as long as you can make it through the amount of time that the washing machine wants to just pummel you, and then you can let yourself kind of ragdoll go with it. And once it's done, you can like peek your head up and get a breath of air. That's what it felt like. And like, yeah, on the 1 month time clock, like literally to the day, I was like, okay, I took a breath. I felt air again in my lungs. And as long as you can like let yourself sit with that for a while, you can make it through, is what it felt like for me. Bridge the gap. Okay, so this is another one that I got from Davey, and it was really huge. And this realization is what kind of changed a lot for me because I started realizing some things that um, that is critical in relationships in general. And I think was so huge for me to see this in my personal life because it feels like every single relationship needs two people that are 60% and 60%. So you have at least an overlap, right? And I feel like what happens is some people, most people that have no idea or hasn't done any work in self-growth or haven't even played the game or really don't like examining the self and don't want to look at the responsibility of that last animal, they'll see that uh, they'll see that last animal and they're like, I got 0% there. I got 0%, maybe 5% at times, maybe 10% at times. But like when it comes to that last animal, I am tapping out. So unfortunately, if you ever have a need or you're having a bad day, right? Because I've played games where I'm like, I'll come over to your side and I will bridge the gap as far as I humanly possibly can. But if somebody is like creeping back and they're like, I'm not going to bridge the gap here, I'm not going to move, I'm not going to adjust, you can keep crawling over and trying to attempt to cover their side. And animosity is what starts happening, because if somebody isn't like, hey, these are my insecurities, these are my gaps, these are my problems, and I need help with them. I acknowledge that I'm sucking in these areas. I need help with them. I need to take responsibility for them. Therefore, I can meet you halfway. It just doesn't work. And I had no idea how much I was crawling over the bridge to try and meet any kind of thing going on here. And in my own way, messing up my own stuff. I still had gaps in my last animal 100%. But it's like, if you're trying to make something work with someone who is not used to covering their percentage and then some, then you're just going to have loss. You're going to have an empty gap. And that's where a lot of the stuff will start happening. It doesn't matter how far you come over the gap. If you're not having a relationship where two people are attempting to, like, I'm having a bad day, can you cover me? Because there was a lot of things that was said about me where it's like, your ego is a problem. You are, yeah, it was mostly stuff like that, ego, arrogance, that I needed time talking out my NI fears. Like a lot of stuff was like, I'm like, yeah, I do. Like I need a lot of time to talk that stuff out. So if somebody isn't like aware, like, hey, I'm having a bad day, either call me out or cover me. There's a missing gap here. Call me out lovingly, obviously, or cover me and say, hey, I see that you are struggling there. I see that you're hurting there. I see that you're trying to resolve something there, that you have some fears. And you're just going to need somebody else on the other side to actually reach over the bridge instead of sit there with their arms crossed, you know, looking down at your situation. You need somebody who's also playing the same game. So he's just saying like, yeah, there's, Dave's advice is like, there's a lot of people that he's seen that are only playing like a 30% game where they're like, I'm not going to cover anybody in my life more than 30 or 40%. So if you have any weaknesses or needs or failures or whatever, it's on you. Screw you. Cause I'm like, yeah, like some of the things that were brought up they're still true, but you need someone that can cover your gap. Like when you're having a bad day. In fact, I think Brene Brown has talked about this before. Like if somebody's not having 100% day, like I only have 40% today. I only have 20% today. I need you to cover me, or let's go in our separate rooms so we can recover. And that's basically what I started realizing is like, oh yeah. As soon as I had failures, there was no leaning over onto this other side and having uncomfortable conversations. There was zero of that, of leaning over to have the uncomfortable conversation. So bridging the gap, I think, was a pretty big lesson that started breaking some of the things in my brain to grow. And I wrote down, I am not my masculine TE. So obviously the parts that I was criticized for was, I think, literally being a number one, and also demon and I were probably the parts that I was criticized for mostly. It wasn't even my masculine TE, but I think Dave has criticized my masculine TE in the past, so that's probably why I put that one down. Or like he and I have talked back and forth about my masculine TE, but like talking it out, blaming. This is another advice from Dave. He was saying blame the part and not the whole percentage of the person. He's like, you're not your masculine TE. The amount you have like negative masculine TE is a very, very, very small percentage of who you are over the course of a year. He's like, sure, there are times when your TE gets pushy and you need to listen to me, and I have the reasons and I have the truth. You need to listen to me. And he's like, yeah, there is a percentage of that, but that's not your 99%. Like that's not who you are over the course of the year. So if somebody wants to jab you and hurt you, they're going to say, gosh, I can't stand your masculine TE. And you're like, okay, like for me as an EJ, like that now is the definition of who I am. That's who I'm like, now I'm confused, and it's like, wait, I don't think I have been that way all year. It's like, but I do know that I have done that. And I do know that there are times where I have that part, and that part is embarrassing to me, whether I was arrogant because of my insecurities. I mean, a lot of the number one stuff, is mostly built on insecurity of trying to puff myself up. And that's like a security measure of like, I know what I'm talking about, that kind of BS. So he's like, very much understand that you are not just your TE. Also recognize like how much positivity other people in your life have gotten because of your TE. In fact, Melissa started reminding me of that. She's like, the amount of good that you have brought to my life and my family's life because of your TE, like, please don't get rid of your TE. So I'm like, okay, that's very helpful. Like, it's more about who am I over the course of a year. So I'm having to like learn these lessons as an EJ, yeah, exactly. Everyone's an asshole somewhere. Right. Yeah, exactly. So yes, that one part can be bad, but that's not the whole of me. So whenever you start feeling insecure about any one of your parts, you're like, that's not the definition in the whole of you. You might have struggles in that area and it might come out occasionally, but that doesn't define you, And then also like a really big realization too is like, what is the real thing that is causing the largest percentage of this actual problem? Because I think so many of us will go through this like problem, having a trauma, having a trigger, having a problem, having an event, and we will absolutely blame something that is like right to the left of the real problem, because that one feels solvable. But the real issue that isn't solvable, we kind of like put that one to the side. And so we'll just spend all of our energy on, you know what, it was because of your NI demon. And you spend all that time. And you know what, it's because of your arrogance. And you know what else, it's this. And I think a lot of it that was getting blamed in that situation was sort of a scapegoat, really, a red herring. Therefore, we could ignore the real problem, because the real problem was, you know, unsolvable or scary or whatever. So yeah, I think that that's something else to focus on, especially, you know, especially if you're trying to get to the bottom of the actual issue. All right, so I'm going to talk about single deciding triggering. I'm going to talk about single observing triggering as well. We'll get to that one in a second, but this is basically where my emotions were going. So very much I felt blamed and villainized. And that's kind of the bottom line of what the last video or audio that I got from the person was. Very much blamed for the entire situation. And, you know, even that blame that they put on themselves still sounded like blame on me. I mean, you know, and I ran that through quite a few double deciders. I'm like, what is going on here? Am I just taking this on, or is this true? So I just try to be as objective as I could. Most of the blame, I just blamed myself. So it doesn't help to get blame pointed at me, because I tend to do the same thing. I tend to blame myself. So, and then villainized, you know, you did this bad, you did that bad, which was a jarring, you know, if you can imagine being addicted to oxytocin and positive chemicals and dopamine and connection every single day, to go from that and then like 1 week later to villainized was just jarring, just really, really like shocking. My whole system got super shocked, you know? So yeah, that's just basically it's happening in that moment, and it isn't necessarily the sum of the parts. And one thing that I really had to recognize is that people say some really nasty stuff when they're angry that doesn't actually represent the whole of how they felt about you. That was one that I still am having kind of a hard time accepting in my neurons, but that I know is true. So that is something that I'm still working with my mind to accept, that people will say stuff out of pure anger and out of rage and out of, you know, just, yeah, but that's not necessarily what they believe. Somebody could even say like, I hate you, but they don't really hate you, but they're just angry, you know? And I think when we're angry, we're not careful with what we say, because you're in an emotional state, and therefore you feel like you're in a, I guess it's kind of the same situation. Like if that person's going through the same triggering of fight or flight triggering, they're going to say a whole bunch of stuff that they don't necessarily mean, that when their chemicals calm back down, they're like, whoops, I probably shouldn't have said that. That was very damaging. And I don't really feel that way as a whole. So that's something that I'm helping myself kind of see. And then double deciding. A lot of times what I saw with double deciding is because they don't personalize the emotions of that moment, they know that there is more to it than that. And that's kind of what I'm seeing is like every double decider, when they saw all the information, they're like, oh yeah, that's probably just because they're upset. Like they don't necessarily mean that as a whole. Like they were able to kind of suss that out. And my brain as a single decider was like, everything was a lie before that. Every time I was told, you know, I love you, I love you, I love you, all of that was a lie. And now this is the new truth. Like it like deleted, like everything was a lie. And now this is the new truth. This new information, when someone is the most angry, is the more truthful information, right? And it feels like double deciders are like, no, you know, like they have that understanding. And it's kind of the same thing with double observing. Like I always know that if the information is too crazy, it's probably not true. There's a possibility that the information is actually crazy, but most often it's like, yeah, there's probably more of a balance. There's probably more of a balance to this than that. And there's most likely missing information. And I think that like that understanding that there is most likely missing information with the double observing, it calms down everything. And I don't really have that when it comes to the deciding stuff, when it comes to placing, you know, who someone is, how they see others, and putting them into a category. It's very black or white. It just gets very black or white for me. Yeah. Yes, when anyone is, oops, sorry, let me put that back up. When anyone is angry, they lash out no matter what the problem is. Totally. Yeah. As a lead T, it's so hard to believe what feelings are not 0 or 100%. I know, right? Yes, 100% for sure. Self-blame is the EJ way. Yeah, I know. I already do enough self-blame. So it scares me when people in my life start pointing the finger at me, because then I'll believe it a little too intensely. Yes, Shannon Dave, and their works have been such a strong foundation for my new self. That's really cool. Thank you for that. That's pretty good. Okay, so now let's go to the single observing imbalance. One thing that I'm really processing is that observers can be just as people blind as deciders. Um, it just comes from a different angle. And this very much surprised me because I think I was sort of unconsciously going off of like, if a double decider says something, it's true. And that kind of got me in a not great state because then, of course, you're now just going all in, single deciding off of somebody else's perspective. So that's where I tend to cause a problem there. So I started seeing that when the pathway gets messed up for observers, the observers will blame a person in the room. It's like I was saying before, where you'll take that negative energy that you can't solve about the pathway, let's say, and you'll like deflect it to the left. So a lot of the energy that was coming, a lot of the anger that was coming, it's like it's easier to just throw it at a person because that's not as personal, even though for a decider it's extremely personal. But, like, it's like they could be so angry about the pathway, and then it just turns into blame and shove at a person in the room, and therefore, it's getting an extreme imbalance of seeing the person as they objectively are, because now you're taking the weight of this triggering of the pathway issue and putting it onto a person. So it's still creating a blindness of the person and not seeing the person objectively because of this fear that's the real fear, and then deflecting it and turning it into a people thing, you know? And one thing that I really very intensely saw is that we can cherry pick info from the past that can either stay in connection with reality, where you're like, I'm trying to create information in my sleep energy to process reality so I can actually learn and grow and process, or I can use that to create a false narrative just to self-protect in that moment. And that's kind of one of the things that I was realizing is that eventually, I mean, you can use that as a positive, you can use it as a negative, but if you're using it to deflect, where you're like, I'm really angry about this pathway mess up. And so I'm going to now cherry pick as much information about a person as I possibly can, villainize them, blame them. I'm just going to go back and take all of this information from the past and shove it onto a person in the room to deflect off of this actually real frustration after the real information. I'm going to now deflect that because I want to self-protect in this moment. And now you're realizing like, okay, well, that's not anywhere near true. It's not anywhere near accurate. It's not the truth of the situation. But using sleep energy, I think we all even, and I think the observers are going to do this, is they're going to cherry pick information to just see the events as they were, whether they're missing the sensory or they're missing the intuitive patterns. Either way, they're going to find the information that supports, let me just deflect the energy. I think it's a deflection game. And I think used in a positive way, I think it's good to be able to create your own story as long as that story doesn't mess you up for the next go round. Because I'm even realizing there's no way to get a perfectly accurate narrative. Like there is no way to do that. Like even if I'm like, okay, let me get all the information from the other person, let me get all the information for myself, let me go back into every single event and perfectly record it, and now come up with my narrative, the sleep story of what it means to me, of all of these events in the past. It's still going to be filtered. It's still going to be somewhat off, and it still has to be able to get me close enough to reality to where I'm not making these mistakes again in the future, and also create the kind of narrative where I can have hope, I can move forward, and I can be positive. So obviously it can be used in a good way, where the sleep energy story can be used in a good way, but also it can be used very much as a negative, where you're just choosing and cherry picking information to create the story that you want to believe. Again, that's going to mess you up for your next chapter. That's going to cause problems in your next chapter. If it's not accurate or it's not true, it could just be self-protecting in that moment. So I do see that with single observing, if you're just wanting to create a narrative that isn't necessarily the truth. So you'll kind of mess up the information there. I'm going to take some of these. That's very true. When I get angry about something, I will normally turn on a nearby person. I do tend to feel like an ass. Yeah, right. I think it's an easier thing to blame. I would guess that the deciders do the same thing where we're blaming things, you know. Single observer, feminine at 5'4" with autistic traits. I'm so blind about flirting. Plus, I thought ones, twos, and threes were not. That's cute. Let's see. Just because they're double deciders doesn't mean that they have all the answers to people. Very much so. It just means that they can easily see both sides. How they resolve that competing information is up to them. Very much so. Yeah. And I do see that if there is a choice to not go get the other side of information, then they'll still stay stuck as well because it's just missing information. We see what we want to see and then discard the rest. Yes, right, exactly. There you go. So that's the single observing balance that I see. Single deciding imbalance. So this is kind of the mistake that I made and where I got so triggered. And if you saw the last couple of shows, you'll see how off I was, where I was just like fully, all of it's on me, all the blame's on me, all the problems on me. I caused all these problems and this other person said stuff about me and therefore it's all true. And it just was like all at once. I'm the worst. I suck. Everything must have been a lie. You know, I really went, single decided. And like, what was my version of single deciding? So we'll get into that here. Once you have decided on someone, all the red flags are now ignored. They can do no wrong, must be the other guy. So I'll talk about that point. The amount of all in good, I had a rose colored glasses for this person. So all of the way, you know, here, I'll read the second line too. Forgetting that behaviors are louder than past promises or words. How they treat others is how they'll treat you. I completely ignored how they were treating other people, how they talked about other people when they weren't there, how they lied to other people, how they behaved towards other people. I just automatically, because I had already single decided on this person, I very much went all in on it must be the other guy. You know, the other guy must be doing something really bad because this person's obviously amazing. So I just completely blinded myself to all of the information that was coming in. So if I was double observing, if it had to do with information, if I was getting intuitive patterns or details, I would be constantly going back and going, I don't know, I'm still getting more patterns coming in. I'm still getting information coming in. I have to stay light with this information until I actually have the whole puzzle. There's a lot more to get in. You can't just say, I know the answer, and then all of the information has to like make it past that one, you know, I already have all the information I need. I have the info I need. I have this single NI pattern, and every new information has to beat on that single NI pattern. Good luck. You're never going to see reality. You would never see reality if you're just holding this flag of, I already know the NI pattern here. Or if it's SI, it's like, I've already been tracking this information. I don't need to take on any new information. I don't need to because I already have it. I have the information. Or if it's a pile of SE, I already have the pile of SE. So I don't need any information. If you have the pile of patterns, if you have any, I already know all the possibilities. I already know the most likely possibility. So all this information coming in has to make it past that. Good luck, right? So that's the same thing as it goes with single deciding. I've already decided on this person. I have already made a decision on this person. And therefore, all of the information that is trying to make it in can't make it in. So that was the struggle, is that, you know, my version of, is everything a lie? It's like, well, technically, yeah, because you filtered everything through positive rose-colored glasses only. If there was a problem, it was my fault. If there was anything wrong, it was because of something in me. I had already single decided, and therefore I had massive missing information. So, not keeping both feet planted on either side, and then a running tab on some people. So I've noticed that with some people, Dave is a good example. I keep a running tab on him where I let him flow. In the past, I had, all negative on him, but I've just double decided on Dave. I let him flow. And I think there are people in my life that I'm like, I give them like a 3-month, sometimes 6-month turnaround where I'm like, yeah, they're good and they're bad. Their patterns will come around every 3 months where they'll show me who they really are and the dark stages every 3 months. And I just keep a running tab on that. I'm like, yeah, they're doing better overall, compared to the previous state of them. and I just running tab. I keep both feet, I keep one foot in and I keep one foot out, and I just let them be. I let them come to me. I let them grow when they're being positive, and I let them be an ass, and I step away from them when they're being an ass, and I just double decide on them. And I think that that's where I tend to keep a lot of people in my sort of extroverted hemisphere. When it comes to my FI, it's very different. And that's when I caused a problem is I let someone into my FI that I single decided on and didn't keep one foot planted, and therefore I wasn't able to keep a running tab on them. And therefore, you now get problems where you're putting them on a pedestal, not seeing any of the signs. I didn't see any of the behavior patterns. I mean, literally the exact same thing happened to me as they treated other people in their lives. I was even saying the exact same thing. So it's like I didn't take any of those things into consideration. So when they happened, I was just in total shock. It was a very much a total shock. So that's what happens is that you just tend to go all in on someone and ignore the flags. Single deciding balancing. So this is like how long it takes to reconnect the neurons. So one of the things that I saw in a lot of the videos is they said you're going to need to go back in time and neutralize the good with all of the bad that was ignored, or vice versa. If you saw them as all bad, you're going to need to go back and see them in good. And I would say the same thing would happen with single observing. If you're only going up and you're picking up bad information about this one thing, and you're like, the sky is falling, conspiracy, conspiracy, conspiracy. And you're never accurately going back and going, let me attempt to see the opposite information on purpose. By the way, I did this. I even said this in the last one. I did it. I went through and I wrote all of the bad information from the past. And my brain was like, didn't believe it. It was like, I'm just bullshitting myself. I don't really believe it. I don't accept that. I don't really feel that way about that person. I'm like, hey, you need to keep doing this. You need to actually keep doing it. So I even, one of the videos I watched, the guy is like some kind of psychoanalyst or psychologist or whatever, and he works with tons of clients in these sorts of situations. And he was like, I even get it to where I have them put it on their phone. I have them put a running list because they will glorify the person. They'll say words like, this was the love of my life. He's like, don't say words like that. You can't let your brain hear wording like that, because then it stops ever having joy and positivity in the future. And that's something that you need to get rid of. So going back and actually filling in all of my people missing information with like, hey, this was bad. This was really bad. That was not great. This was not great. That was not great. At first, I don't like thinking like that, because I wanted to believe that I was the worst. I wanted to believe that everything that they said was the worst of me, the worst ever. And I had to like actually go back and be like, there was a lot of signs, there was a lot of stuff, there was a lot of not good things that I needed to take in and take on. And I was even scared to do that, because one of the things that was told to me was that I was, arrogant and critical. And I'm like, okay, well, then I'm not going to be even, as an EJ, I'm not allowed to go back and say anything bad about this person, because I'm even getting criticized for that, which is not even true. Like, I put this person on a pedestal, absolutely 100%. So now I'm having to go, okay, I need to break my brain and allow myself to be like, yeah, there was a lot of hurtful stuff and a lot of negative situations that I'm now getting blamed for, that I have to go and neutralize, which was very strange. But the more I did it, the more I started neutralizing. It just took time. And I'm still not there yet. I still feel like I very much have delusionally I saw green flags. I saw only green flags when there were some red ones, and I just don't have a balance. So I'm having to swing to balance stuff, which feels uncomfortable. It feels like, well, am I not just doing the same problem but the other way? And it's like, well, unfortunately, you didn't pick up a normal balanced tab going back and forth all along the way. So now you have to kind of neutralize your 100% positive with some bad, so that you can go, yeah, this person wasn't my person. Moving on. So that's just going to take me some time. Yeah, it would be the same thing with observers. And it didn't work with just one tribe, but meditation and time seems to be where because you can't just rewire neurological pathways. Like they don't quickly rewire. And there won't be pain connected to the events, because you're reliving past memories. If you're going through a memory at the time and it causes pain, magically your body is like, oh, now I can see the bad. Now I can see, all the negative events, and now I can actually believe them. So it's like going back in the past and having to go, that didn't really hurt me at the time, but I have to kind of see this as a negative. So kind of a weird process, but I think it would be the exact same thing when it comes to single observing, where you're having to go back and re-see that event in a different light, you know? You'd have to want to, you know? All right, current lessons. Still neutralizing the past. And for me, that's meditation. Definitely doing the meditation. I am meeting with a therapist. I got a therapist. I've met with them twice now. Actually did a lot of not good today. Meeting with them today, and they're like, "Don't do meditation by yourself." And I was like, "What?" So I don't know if I'll keep that therapist because um, yeah, they started seeing me. They're like, you're a lot of left brain. I'm like, yeah, I am a thinker. They're like, that's not good. Let's stop doing that. I'm like, that's not helping. And then they did this whole exercise of like touch the ground with your feet, touch, feel your ankle to your foot. And I was like, okay, we're not gonna do another session. So I think I got to change therapists, but it's still the right way. I'm doing it through BetterHelp, just because that's what's advertised. And I got what's the word? I got influenced. But I think I'll probably try another one until I can find one that understands thinkers, because there's nothing wrong with my brain, but it needs to overthink stuff. It's trying to resolve stuff. And the meditation is very much helping. So I'm going to keep doing that. And then I still have a few things I need to grow in character. I'm still taking on what the other person said. I'm definitely still taking it on. I just need to put the percentage of it and the weight of it, the heaviness of it in its appropriate place. Because I feel like it was so all encompassing that it crushed me. And I need to see that as like a thing to work on as a percentage, but not like defining who I am. So yeah, I still need to work on my arrogancy and you know, that I put a lot of pressure. I don't even know if that one's a bad one. Like, yeah, I need to talk out my NI fears. So I hope the other person feels comfortable talking out their demon function fears. Like that's normal. So I don't necessarily think that one's a flaw in me. I actually think that it's healthy for me to do that. It's just looks weird when you're doing your demons. It looks weird. It's embarrassing. So that's definitely, I don't think that that's necessarily one that I need to fix in myself. I think I just need to find people in my life that can see me, that are willing to cross the bridge and not just sit there and scoff when someone else has a weakness, like, ew. So I definitely need to find somebody that is more sensitive to those needs, just caring more about what I'm going through and why. Like, why am I in a struggle? Why am I having these fears? Where is that coming from? And help me resolve them just as much as I'll help the other person resolve them. I need somebody who's willing to cross the bridge, not just, go go all out on, I'm not going to help you with what you're struggling with. So yeah, I think a lot of that is just, yeah, we just weren't compatible in that way. Um, and but still, I still think like some of the stuff I was saying was very unconscious. Um, you know, just tooting my own horn, like they said. So yeah, that kind of stuff is still stuff that I hit by, definitely took on, and definitely will take forward with me. So definitely working there. And then adding things on as far as like different food, I am not there yet. Adding more work on, I am not there yet. That stuff is going to happen in baby steps. I'm just lucky that I can eat a meal every single day. So I'm still at that position. I am planning on this year going down and living in California. That is my next step. I'm just not there yet either. I have to kind of get some things off of my plate before I do that. But that's a huge jump. And right now I'm like still financially in a struggle because of this whole issue. So I'm just staying in a place where I'm not having to pay for where I'm living just to recuperate some of the massive loss of this whole fuck offery. And I'm still talking things out every single day. Melissa has been a godsend. Davey has been a godsend. My mom has been a godsend, just really helping me a lot. So that has been freaking huge. And then time. Time has been the biggest thing. I literally think a lot of this chemical stuff is on a time clock. I think your body is just, okay, we got told a month later that we're not in a fight or flight situation. So now we can start calming down. I think a lot of that is just automatic autonomic processes that go through your body. And I do think it's time digging in the right direction. I think the meditation is what is resolving this so fast. I thought this was going to take me 6 months, but because I'm doing 2 hours of meditation every single day where I'm like, hey, what's freaking out my brain? What is the thing that's freaking out my brain? Then I therefore have the ability to kind of um, dig in the right, you're like connecting the correct neurons, you're re-breaking the bone in the right direction. So there you go. That is my current lessons of the day. There you go. Any other questions that you guys have? Then I can jump over to the Facebook stuff, but I figured I would kind of take some of the stuff. Let me see. Kaden, what are you saying here when it comes to anxiety? I'll do me whole. Hello, me. It's helpful when it comes to anxiety. I think, of course, it has its limits. Let's see. What are you asking? Not the right brain and left brain stuff, though. Yeah, I know. It was kind of like, I'm going to see what you're saying. I think there's actually research supporting that touching the ground with one feet influences one's emotional state. So, yeah, I was doing a lot of like NTing with my therapist, and they were like, "Oh, you're too left brain. You're being too left brain. Let's get you balanced." And I'm like, "Okay, but my problem is in the NT." I'm trying to understand this. And they're like, "We need to just get you to in your emotions." I'm like, "I have been crying nonstop for an entire month. I think I'm okay there. I think I'm missing emotions." I've definitely been wallowing nonstop. And honestly, we did the feet touching the ground stuff, and I'm like, "This just feels like sensory." Like, I don't have a problem sitting in sensory. So it was just kinda like I was rolling my eyes. I was just like, "This is not it." For me. I don't think that that's necessarily a problem for other people. Maybe if you have demon SF, that's a positive thing. For me, I was just like, "This feels like the kindergarten version of my saviors." So I'm just like, "I don't need help touching the ground. I feel my body all the time." Where I'm struggling with NT loss. So for me, it felt weird, but I think for most people, I think it would help, or at least if that happens to be your struggle, where you're puzzling too much, where you're puzzling all day, if you're in NT all day and you've never physically touched ground, thought about the physical touch of ground, maybe it would help. But I guess. An arrogant, critical EJ us, bah, fragile cupcakes. I'm not sure if they're fragile cupcakes. I think you might be saying they're fragile cupcakes. I mean, that's part of it. I do feel like there is some oversensitivity there, but I don't know. I wanna take everything on so I can grow, for sure. Oh, there you go. Let me see, what does it say? "We think you're incredibly intelligent and support you through the time." Well, that's very freaking nice. Thank you. Yes, very freaking nice. Let's see. Jesse says, "When you're in California, let me know if you want to rock climb." Oh, hell yeah. That would be so fun. That's great. Yeah, absolutely. In Joshua Tree? Is that where you go? I've actually rock climbed in Joshua Tree um, a long time ago. Let's see. I live in Los Angeles and I recommend coming after all the fires are done. I know. I grew up, I lived for the first 30 years of my life in Los Angeles area. Maybe we can have a meetup. Maybe we can do a meetup in LA once I get down there and I can see all you guys. That'd be kind of cool. Let's see. A deep personal relationship ended. It was very traumatic for Shan. Yes. And I lost a family too. Like I was a part of a little family. So, ooh, that one hits. That one's hard. Yeah. So a lot of loss. Lost a pathway, lost hope. It was a lot. Let's see. How does this relate to not wanting to leave a toxic environment? Not wanting to leave? That you get stuck in there? I mean, yeah, I've been in that situation before. And I think what gets stuck in the brain is that there is a belief that there isn't anything better out there. That one's kind of the first one that was going through my mind at that time. And then the second thing is that you get so discouraged, you don't believe you deserve better. Um, and then also, um, yeah, because you need so much energy to like uplift from a negative situation. It's like, is there anything better? I don't deserve any better. And then also the belief that things will change. I think that that's some of the things. So yeah. Let's see. Therapists are often too prescriptive. Health can look a lot of different ways. Yeah, I think that my therapist is also a feeler, and so to them, being in a thinking state is bad, so that could be part of the problem as well. I heavily dislike when therapists can't see outside what they normally do. Yeah, I actually think the first session I had with them was so good, but the second one felt a little weird because it was like, "Oh, don't meditate, you should do that guided," and I'm like, "I don't need help meditating." You know? It's like, "Oh, it's dangerous, don't go in there." I'm like, "No, I definitely wanna go in there." I definitely I live in my thinking mind, so that felt a little strange. Be touching the ground is checking for early childhood trauma. Yeah, and I feel like they were amping up early childhood trauma, and I'm like, I think everybody to some degree has some. I'm fine. I have more issues in my today. Pipes burst under pressure. It's better to let the cries out from time to time. Totally. And I think it feels really good to let the crying out. And I think it felt really, I mean, I was just crying nonstop. So it was definitely felt good. It felt better to cry than it did to have anxiety. Anxiety was just like the worst. Your whole body hurts, the chemicals of just making your stomach hurt, your throat hurt, you can't eat, you just feel sick 24/7 and you can't even sleep because you feel so sick. Crying felt so much better because there's a release of bad chemicals. Let's see. She's used to people going in with their saviors and not seeing their demons. Yeah, totally. What is demon NT like? NT last? A lot of the missing information is understanding the why in a more categorical way, because I will do a lot of attempting of gathering the why by being like, they said this and then I said this and then this happened and then that happened. Okay, tell me the reasons. And you're not looking at it categorically from a bird's eye view where you're just like, these kinds of patterns happen in general to people as a whole. I will skip that part. I will miss that part because I'll be going, they said this and then they said this and then they said this and then they said this. What's the reason? What's the reason? What's the reason? And then I'll get stuck in that spiral. So to pull away from the this and this and this and this and this to get to the categorical problems is just a mind game struggle that I have to continuously do. I fight my ST, I fight the TESC, and I'll spin in the ST going, well, this was said, but that said, and this was said, but that said, but that means this, and this means that, and these contradict. And I'll go through that spinning for a while. So it just takes a long time to sift through that Rolodex part of my brain where it just spins and spins and spins until I can get the NI because I don't believe the NI as quickly and as easily as I do the information, the data that is coming in. So yeah. Let's see. You went in directly to the problem and it confused the therapist. I think they just felt very uncomfortable hearing any kind of NT puzzling. Let's see. And this is coming from a stubborn IJ lol. If a therapist doesn't have at least an open view to hear out the stuff when they feel like, yeah, it just made me uncomfortable. I think that's really all it was. I felt very stuck after the session today. I got a lot of anxiety. I took a nap afterwards and I got so much anxiety. It felt very like stuck feeling. Because the one thing that has been really helping me is the meditation. It's the puzzling, it's the going after what is my brain triggered by? What am I trying to resolve? That deeper, 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 deeper thing that my brain feels is the loss. That is what's really helping me is going, what am I trying to solve here? Oh, I feel like this person has power over my identity because they said all this bad stuff and I loved them. Therefore, must be true and I must be the worst. And it's like having to like unpack and break apart that puzzle and needing to bring the power back from the outside and bringing it back to myself and going, a percentage of that's true. And I can work on that percentage as well as a percentage of that is not true. And that person is going through anger and upsetness over the loss of a pathway. So I need to not take that on, but that takes time for my brain to believe that. And that's where I felt safe is going through that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Hey, when an ESTP jumper jumps to FE and then NI and then TI, would that make them a double observer? No, double observing is just a cognitive balance. So, yeah, not so much. Let's see. Two times NT here, guilty as charged. Yes, they are friend of the cupcakes. Some people are. Excuse me. Some people are for sure. Yes. Joshua Tree, Tahoe, wherever. Oh, Tahoe. I've only driven through Tahoe. Tahoe's gorgeous, but I haven't actually. Sunnyvale, hey. That's where Davey grew up. Okay. Same. I'm in LA right now. This fires are stressful. Yeah. I think this is the worst one I've ever seen. I mean, we had fires growing up all the time, and we had one that went right to our backyard one year. Um, and it's just terrifying. But I think these are probably the worst I've ever seen, where they just annihilate cities. That panics me. Of course, some of the some of the mudslides really freaked me out as well. Back, I don't know if that was like 10 years ago or how many years ago that was. Oh, let's see, which is weird because I think I grew up near Dave. Yeah, 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 Sunnyvale. Yeah, totally. I'm sorry, Maisie did this to you. Yeah, this is all about Maisie. That's funny. Let's see, to be clear, lucky to get Shan, not the fires. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, totally. Thank you. That's very sweet of you. Is the feeling of not having a real identity an EJ fear? Yeah. Unfortunately, it's just brain wiring alone. Being savior TE at the top, especially masculine, means that I have a tiny baby feminine movable emotional identity. And if I've given that little baby FI to someone else wholeheartedly and I let them 100% in and I loved them wholeheartedly and I gave them myself, there's so much trust there and there's so much connectivity there. And then you have all the oxytocin and chemicals that are involved. Unfortunately, the weight of their opinion is so much greater than my opinion of myself and who I am. I automatically, my brain wiring has to take on whatever they say about me. And I think in general, DE does that. And, try having it at the top. But in general, DE will take the weight of an opinion from the outside tribe, especially if they're esteemed, especially if you value them. That becomes a higher weight than the weight of your own decision making. So totally. And then the fact that it's movable, it's not like I have solid masculine identity where I've built these things as this is me, this is me, this is me, this is me. So I could rely on that when somebody says a bunch of stuff. I'm like, no, 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 that's not me. I got this. I know this. I know this. Like, that's harder to retrieve because everything gets washed out. I'll eventually see it again, once the chemicals clear, but man, it just knocks your knees out. So yeah, unfortunately. Let's see. Thanks. I think I blame myself too much for things I can't control or people criticizing me consciously. Yeah, very much so that. Yeah. Let's see. What's the Facebook you mentioned? Is it private? Let's see. The Facebook group I can go to in a minute here. It is, let's see. Why can't I find it? It's called like Unofficial Objective Personality Study Group. I think that's what it's called. And it's not, it is private, but they let everybody in. Let's see. Therapists might have FE. Yeah, they might. They might be an ESFJ. I think that they were concerned about me NTing. It felt like still really good, very, very smart therapist, very smart. I just think that there was like a fear of me doing meditation and a fear of me doing the NT puzzling stuff. So, yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right answer. Like, no, I definitely need to do this puzzling stuff. It's not that we don't have an identity. It's that it's so externally attached and needy. Now tell me I'm good. Yeah, unfortunately, there is a weight and a power to the outside world. Let's see. Just to clarify, when I said touch grass, I meant that it's a common expression. Oh, totally. Yeah. Totally. I had a therapist tell me to look at a tree to calm down. Didn't really help. It was just like, okay, it's a tree. I put the phone on mute when she was there telling me to do this, and I just was like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom right now. I just don't have a hard time touching grass. I'm double activated SF. Is it an EJ thing to not know what you want because you spent most of your life trying to play an unsatisfying role like the perfect student or perfect child? 100%. Yes, especially TE, like 100%. It's so much. If I give help to the other guy, which is ironic because sometimes giving help is like exactly the thing they don't want. because it makes them feel like there's something wrong with them. That's part of where I think some of the arrogant comments are coming from, of me being like, let me help you. It makes somebody feel like you're parenting them. So it's like, I don't see it that way. I'm literally seeing the other person as above me, and I'm trying to, at some point, provide value to them. Like, my TE is my service, it's my value. I'm trying to provide this thing, and therefore, if I can provide this thing, then I internally have value. And unfortunately, if they're like, I hate what you provided, then it removes value. So it's such a ironic function. You're like, why why have this? Now obviously it can act very unselfishly, very much give, constantly thinking about the other person, constantly wanting to make sure the other person is okay, but like, oddly, at the end of the day, you still get blamed for, you know it's just so weird, it's so bizarre. Yes, 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 yes. Did you get my email? No, I did not get your email. Let's see. I'm not taking a whole lot of private messages. I will say people are private messaging, but if they're too long, I'm not writing back. If they're too many questions in them, I'm not writing back. I just don't. I don't have it right now. That's back to tapping out, but not quitting. I'm not going to be able to write back long emails. I'm blast last, and I'm barely making it to eat a meal a day. But if it's a message that I can, like if it's a private message that I can just give like a thank you or hearts and flowers back, then I'm able to do that. Yeah. Let's see. When you first encountered MBTI, what type did you think you were? Thanks for this Q&A. I mean, when I first encountered it, I was talking with Dave, and he thought I was either an ENFJ or an ENTJ. So he had me read both of those profiles. He asked me if I was an extrovert, and I was like, yes, I think I am. I get more energy from being around people. And like the odd thing I was going off of is like, I would go in public and I would sit at a table by myself and work around other people. But it was like a single table that I didn't want anybody to sit with me. So much for getting energy around people. But that was my version of extrovert at the time. It was like, yeah, I get work done when I'm around people. They can't talk to me though. Leave me alone. But he had me read those two profiles, and the one with the demon FI sounded more like the struggles that I was dealing with. So pretty much right off the bat, we realized I had the baby FI issues. And then every time I've ever taken an MBTI test, I get INTP, ironically, which is nowhere near my type. Let's say you feel so validated right now. Oh my God. Yeah, good. Thank you. That's great. Glad to hear that. DE first seems to be a bias of group identity, while DI last seems to be a personal identity with in the context of group identity. Yeah, sure. Or in a nested hierarchy way, like a Russian nesting doll. Yeah, that's a good example, or a good analogy there. As someone who has been working through his own major lifestyle waves since last year, it's pretty fascinating to see how you're affected versus how I'm affected as an ENTP. Yeah, right. Lots of crossover, lots not. I know. It's so interesting. There's so much crossover as far as conceptual crossover, where like the process of going through grief is going to be the same. But then like what? Like, oh yeah, yeah. I'm not affected by somebody telling me this is not, this is who you are, or the tribe judgment, or losing of your identity. It'll be very different than that. But as far as like the process of just the human going through a traumatic scarring on the brain, the triggering, yeah, like in that live show, the Triggerings live show, that's a pretty good one to go over, because it does talk about, like, in general, I think this is what we all go through, just different versions. This is helpful to know because I don't like unsolicited advice. Hearing why you wanted to help the person helps me understand why people may feel that need to blast. Yeah, it's so much this need to, it's an obligation. If I'm not giving TE, if I'm not giving advice, if I'm not giving help, if I'm not giving something to the other person, it's like, you know what? Like, when somebody gives you a gift, and like, if you don't just say thank you, you're like, oh, let me give you a gift back. It's like you take away the other person's ability to give you a gift. It's kind of what it feels like. It's like if somebody's literally getting something out of giving to you. And it does have more to do with them than it does with you. And it's also okay to be like, hey, I don't want that, actually give me patience, give me peace, give me some alone time. You can ask them because like the TE is like, I just want you to be happy. I just want you to be happy. So if this advice is making you unhappy, I don't want to do that. I don't want to give you something you don't want. So I think a lot of that has to do with just, how you're interacting. You can communicate would help for sure. Let's see. That's somebody called ENFJ. Let's see. The working around people is body doubling to some extent. Sure. I get INTP. Yeah. Yeah, you do too. That's funny. That's great. Let's see. I'm gonna ask for words for the strength you have had to go through this and face it head on. That means a lot. Thank you. I'm trying, man. I'm definitely trying. I'm just trying to grow so I don't have these kinds of things happen again. So yeah, very much. Thank you. Okay, guys, let's do, thanks for all these questions. This is amazing. Let's go. I'll add the, I'll do the Facebook stuff. Let's do that at this point. Yeah. And then, let me move myself around here. There we go. Okay. So I think it would help to get the Facebook thing up so I can actually see it. There we go. Okay, guys. And then I'll just run through these as fast as I can, and then we'll be done here. Oh, we've gone, let's see, what time is it? About an hour and 20 minutes. Yeah, sounds pretty good. Not too bad. So yeah, if you guys have questions, if you want to throw them on the Facebook post here as fast as possible, feel free to do it. And then I'm just going to run through. Okay, could you provide a reading watch list for us for things that have helped you on your journey of ops? Honestly, let's see. The biggest like op type thing is I just read Carl Jung's Psychological Types. So I did a lot of extracting from that one, not a whole lot of any other books. I think Davey might have read some other books like Please Understand Me Too or something like that. Those lame books. Not lame, whatever. I'm sure they're amazing. I'm scared. Don't want to offend anybody. But I read Carl Jung's Psychological Types, and that helped me understand the cognitive functions deeper. A lot of what he was saying, I was realizing he was sort of looking at the cognitive functions as all separate. And once I read that, I started realizing that all the introverted functions are the same. All the extroverted functions are the same. And he was just talking about them individually, but that's where I started seeing that the introversion has a commonality, that the extroversion has a commonality. I don't know. It just sort of got my brain wiring jogged in that direction of kind of seeing some of those things. So, yeah, just thinking in that way. As far as like self-help type stuff, I mean, we read so many of the like 4-Hour Work Week, Ready, Fire, Aim, like business books. A lot of it was like business books oriented, but both Davey and I are generalists. So those kinds of things helped us think in a different way, to run your life in a different way, where you have more power and control over your day to day, that you don't have to go by the status quo. I think that those kinds of things were very helpful. And then just watching so many celebrities has been the biggest thing, because, or not celebrities, but just people in general, because you learn so much about yourself by watching other people of the same type, watching other people that are free, that have gotten out of their demon function fears. That's been the biggest thing, where you're watching somebody where you're like, oh, it's possible. It's possible to not stay in a state of darkness. It's possible to grow hope again. And a lot of that just comes from watching the thousands of people where we're typing them, and then you're just getting to know their story. And, the amount of people, like Davey even sent me Mel Robbins, where she was this week or last week, where he was like saying like, hey, she had a midlife crisis too, which so many of these people that are like now happy and free have had these like midlife completely, lose everything, lose their marriage, lose their business, that kind of stuff. And just seeing that somebody who's speaking from a position of happiness, joy, and made it on the other side, like, okay, they once felt how I feel right now. It's possible. So I think a lot of that is where you get to steal the blueprints of somebody else's life. That's mostly where a lot of that has come from, mostly just people watching, you know. If you had a way to store Ancestry DNA, 23andMe raw data securely, and that data could be used to crowdsource correlations to type, would you do it? 1000%. In fact, I think that that would be the missing element here of moving op to a higher state. A lot of people still criticize that it's just Dave and I, rightfully so. And I think that that would be a much healthier place. If op were to make it, I believe that it would be more along those lines of getting it into some kind of scientific element, and you would need backing like that. Are there any solidly written characters in media that you would not mind talking about in an op type way, even if it's not a full type, understanding the patterns of, you know, I mean, right now, okay, so I think if you guys have seen the last live, I was telling you that I was watching trash TV and that was the only thing that calmed my mind. I have now upgraded. I've now upgraded to Bridgerton. I'm now watching Bridgerton again on repeat. And every time I get into anything, I watch it just 100 times over. So I'm watching the entire season. I'm watching it again. I'm watching it again. I'm watching it again. So I watched all the seasons, including Charlotte, and then just watching them again. So I'm on a Bridgerton kick. So if you ask me about any characters, it's going to be some kind of Bridgerton. Solidly written characters. I mean, I guess I could go by the mom, Violet. She seems to be a very, very typical ISFP, lead FI. She reminds me so much of my mom. She's such an amazing character. So I would say the majority of that show just has so many EPs, it's not even funny. Like almost every single character is an EP, some different form of an EP. So, I mean, a lot of those are funny, but one interesting thing about the character, Violet, Violet Bridgerton, the mom, basically the mom, that I find interesting is that her values of the children need to have a love story, a love match, is what she's projecting onto each of the characters. And I find that very interesting and ironic because that's exactly how my mom is, where she has values for her kids that permeates everything, where the kids kind of know that if their life choices don't match up with that FI, then there is conflict. Which I mean, I think my mom is amazing, and I think her values for me are amazing. But I do see that that is something that kind of comes up a lot, and so I do think that that's a interesting part of the storyline. How much the mom's FI projects that they all need to have these kinds of love stories. So I think that that's very interesting. And of course, there's other characters that are super interesting in the story as well. I feel like I have a general understanding of what almost all of their types are in real life. So it's really hard for me. Oh, I will say this. It's really hard for me if they have found, most of the time the person's actual personality comes through in the character. Like you almost can't not. But sometimes really good characters, people that play villains and stuff like that, you're like, wow, you're playing a really good villain, even though that's not your personality type. You're having to access a different part of your personality to play that villain, which normally in real life, you're very sweet. Like Cressida, you could tell Cressida in real life is just an absolute sweetie pie. And it's not really like that character in real life. So it's hard for me to separate that person is this type in real life and then their character written. If the casting agent is doing a good job, which most of the time, especially for a show that of that high caliber, most of the time they're doing a really good job at being able to match, type. I would say, especially in Bridgerton. Game of Thrones, I feel like Daenerys, like she's an ENTJ and like does not fit that. So she's doing a good job acting, like she's actually acting because she's playing a very DI role. So that one I feel like is a departure from her personality type. Just shows that she can play that character very well. So I feel like she's playing her demons in that situation. But in Bridgerton, I feel like most of them are just playing their types. All right, let's see. Count me in. Consume hobby. Awesome. I'll listen to literally anything you say about socials. My brain is obsessed. Socials. I think the biggest thing that I'm staring at with socials is how much a relationship can break down based on lack of love languages needs getting met. So I'll probably say that and then I can move on. But yeah, I would definitely say that's a pretty big thing that I see is the love languages it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. And if you're not getting those met, then you will cause problems. There you go. Peter Griffin. Yeah, Peter Griffin, ESFP. Let's see. Expectations of others is like a boomerang. Keep throwing. Never expect to hit me in the face. I know. Totally. Totally. Yes. Um, yes. Let's see. Any other questions there? Let's see. I love how Bridgerton season one, such a good example of FBTI romance, and season two of an FITE romance. I know. Very true. Very true. Although I think the female, I don't think either one of those two are FE in real life. They're both, I believe both of them are FI. Yeah, in fact, I think a lot of them are FI. Let's see. INFP, she might be an INFP and he might have been a ESFP play. Yeah, my nose is getting cold. Okay, let's see. Oh, here we go. Okay, visual men versus visual women. What trends do you notice? Versus, like the difference? Hmm. I feel like the visual females let themselves be more masculine, while the visual males let themselves be more feminine. I don't know. That'd be the only thing I would notice as far as that goes. Let's see, what does this person say? Tattoos and piercings, for sure. Yes, that's true. Let's see. All right, I'll be ready with yeah, the info dominant. Do you have any advice and thoughts for raising kids regarding their saviors and demons? A lot of advice has come across. Follow the natural direction of the child. It seems like it might feed their saviors and provide their demons. Yeah. I think to me, you know, the game that I played with my son is acceptance. Acceptance and then like uh gentle nudging towards acceptance of the last animal. I think that the majority of people will get triggered by their last function and then terrified, can't even see, don't realize that the answer is in their last animal. And it seems to be a consistent pattern. I haven't seen anything different over the years. It's exactly what I'm using right now to resolve my own personal problems. So I'm still seeing that if somebody is not taking management over their last animal, they will get themselves stuck. And so the problem then becomes with your kids to not hammer on them, but like guide them, because I don't think there's anything wrong with being in your saviors. I don't think being in your saviors is the problem. I don't. It's the delusion that the saviors have all the answers and then also massively disrespecting the last animal. I think that that's the biggest problem. So I think, yeah, I think allowing them to see that loving all of their parts, even though naturally they will feel like there's something wrong with using their demons, it's okay. Like teaching them that it's okay. It's going to feel weird. It's going to feel backwards, but that's also a part of you. You are also your last animal. And learning and teaching love of, yeah, it's okay to love your saviors, but also just know that you're not really stuck, even though you think you're stuck when it comes to your last animal. You feel like this, you know, the world is against you. You feel like everything is against you. You feel like everything is out to get you. You feel like you're at war. You feel like it's like all of those are just feelings that are just coming from not feeling like, you know, you can go access a different part of your brain, and just teaching them that there is another portion of your brain. It's harder to access. It just takes practice and you got to give it time. And I think that's one thing that has helped me and myself and helps me with my son. So yeah. Yeah. Yeah, just basically not seeing it as it's bad. Yeah. Let's see. Zero says, "What's your NI? Still learning." I'm asking NI, right? On people defending a type that didn't end up being that person's actual type. How might something like that be avoided in the future? Not the wrong type being passed out. You know, this is the thing. This happened recently. But the defense from the yeah, and the defense from the masses after. What do you think the reasons this happened? Again, not asking about the wrong type being handed out, but the tribe coming to defense of the type. So I think the biggest problem is people will get into op and they'll sort of assign themselves a type, and then they'll come and get typed. And I don't recommend that. I don't recommend that. If you want to go choose a type, your brain is going to start filling in all of the information to support that type. And if you start getting addicted to your seeing op in a way that supports whatever the version that you're getting, that that automatically, I think it does your brain a disservice because now you have to break all your understandings. It makes you think op is broken. You do a lot of damage to yourself by going and learning it through the lens of what your brain wants to see it as, which is kind of like the point of not that's like not the point of op. The point of op is to be able to see things from an outside perspective. And I would say if you're going to do that, go for it. Absolutely go for it. Type yourself as whatever type you want to see yourself as. You can use the system in that way. It's not meant to be used in that way, but go for it. Like no one's stopping you. I would just say then don't then switch over and get typed by Dave and I and think that that's going to be an easy transition. I would say that that would probably be the thing to avoid because you're switching from I'm creating a self type to I'm now having to break the parts of my understanding to take on what someone else is seeing me as. Also, on that note, or kind of what you're saying there as far as the tribe, why the tribe comes in to defend. I think what the tribe has seen for years is people will come in and disagree with their type, and their type will be so obvious to everyone. Like everyone will be able to see their type. Now, again, you could literally filter through whatever you want to see. You could see what you want to see. That's what happened recently. You know, you can see what you want to see. Um, and I think that I think the tribe in the early days used to really fight against Dave and I. And once they started seeing people's types kind of play out over time, they're like, ooh, okay, I'm now starting to see that all these patterns that Dave and Shan mentioned are true. So that started happening. I think people started finally several things, seeing other people come into the community and be very wrong and very like blind about their own type. That's one thing that started happening, as well as I think a lot of people started recognizing, oh my gosh, I thought my type was this. In fact, that's mostly what it is. They'll see themselves as one type, get typed as another type, and then their whole brain will go through an entire change and a process where they're like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing it every day. I'm seeing it all day. I'm seeing it all the time. And that process is what really changes a person, where they're starting to see their demon functions, their savior addiction, their last animal. They're starting to see it all. And so they know what it feels like to go through that process themselves. So I think they get really defensive because they're like, hey, don't do what I did. Like, trust me, there is another side to this. I think that the community gets very much that way about it, where they're like, oh, trust me, once you see it, you can. Um, but I think it's still very healthy. I think Jose said something really good recently where he was like, yeah, sometimes they get it off. So we can't go all in. I thought that that was a very good way of saying it. Like that, just because Dave and I give out a type doesn't mean that we're correct. That's not, that's not something to go 100% off of as well. That's never been the goal. That's never been the goal. And it's hard to, it's hard. It's a very delicate balance because you're like, don't go all in on what we're saying. Also, if we've looked at you twice, three times, four times, and um, you've given really good videos or whatever, like there are times when we're like, I'm not seeing anything different. I don't think I'm gonna see anything different. And here's your type. And there's been times where we've been wrong. If we were trying to play a game where it's our way or the highway and just trust us and we're the only ones that could type you, why would we ever go back on a type? That's one that I find very interesting. Some people pick up on that very easily in the community. They're like, hey, if they were running some kind of weird game here, why would they not just tell the person whatever they wanted to hear? That's what most personality systems do. Like, let me just tell you whatever you want to hear. So I'll collect your money and here's the type you want to be, and I don't have to hear about it. Like why that would be a much better business model. Like, I can't even tell you how much I wish that's what we were doing, where we're just telling people whatever type that they wanted to be. And the second problem is what happens when we get one wrong and then we admit we get one wrong and then we tell them and then they tell the whole community. If we were trying to not care more about the like scientific process of it or the truth of it or the objectivity of it, we would never tell somebody we messed up. Like, why would you ever do that? That's the worst thing you could do because it just sends the whole community off into a frenzy. That would be the worst thing ever. It's like, why would you ever admit that you're wrong? You know? So, like, we're doing a horrible business job by actually telling people something, some information objectively. But I feel like the community, I still feel like the community has matured so much in a way, even if times they'll support what we're saying and we're wrong. I still think in general, the community is very much understanding as a whole. There's still a percentage that don't, but as a whole, I feel like they are starting to really get like, hey, this is just a batting average game. This is a percentages game. Dave and Shan are not always 100% correct, but usually when they watch somebody enough times, I feel like people are getting it. So I think that that's what's going on. I think that that's kind of the process. There you go. That was a long answer. What do you think, Coin speaking of a man? What do you think, Coin speaking of a man that interrupts phrases when he speaks, not ending them on a constant basis, leaving you there to fill the gap or waiting for the conclusion? That sounds like me. I interrupt and I leave voids and I don't finish sentences. Feels like blast last. I don't know. I could be wrong. Hey, Shan, question about behavior change. What patterns do you see in people that somehow change deeply set behaviors like addiction or harmful tendencies? It is a rock bottom. It is a rock bottom where they run out of options. They run out of options and they actually believe that they are the ones causing it. I think so much the brain has the ability to deflect, project, and blame, and therefore not keep themselves in the pressure cooker. And like this month for me, it's just been me sitting, staring at my own pressure cooker so that I can learn. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to even then, because it's still a lot of like neurons that have to change, like fundamental neurological pathways that have to change. And even then, I'm still going to go unconscious in a couple of months and I'll forget some of this stuff. I'll forget to not be too um, full of myself or too cocky with my masculinity. I'll still forget for sure. So it's like you grab as much as you can, putting yourself in the pressure cooker situation where you're not deflecting. Blame is like the devil for growth. Like if you're deflecting, if you're blaming, if you're projecting, or you're creating a diversion instead of keeping the heat on yourself, you just cannot grow that way. You can't. It's like you're if you're in a gym, you're like taking the weights and you're like giving it to the guy next to you, and you're like, that's not mine. You carry that, so you're not getting any of the growth your own self. And then even then, you would still have to do the consistency. You would still have to put in your time. You know, maybe I need to go through this another time. Maybe I need to go through it another time. But while it's happening, I'm trying to stay as awake as humanly possible and write down notes, write down videos where I'm keeping myself accountable. I'm desperately trying to learn this lesson so I don't have to learn it again the next time around. So. See, Michael Cotto, years ago, you guys talked about seeing the world as programs in a very detached way due to discovery of ops. Are you personally still seeing the world that way, or have people become more humanized and visceral as time has passed? I would say, for me, I think the going after the programs thing, I think a lot of that was just more of a shock to kind of see the world through the eyes of op, where you're seeing everybody's recurring patterns, where nothing is different and nothing is changed. So I definitely saw that in an extreme, especially me with Demon and I. But then eventually you still come back around where you're like, there's this love, there's this connection, there's this peacefulness to humanity. And I feel like, you know, part of me jumping on the Facebook group and doing these lives and stuff like that is to connect with you guys. Because I got very detached and I didn't like the feeling of feeling very detached. So as soon as I started doing my live shows, I felt more connected with everyone. So I would say I've definitely humanized more, and I still have a long way to go, but that's I feel like I'm more in that direction than I used to be for sure, and still heading more towards that. Let's see. Have you ever been asked to type someone's child? Yes. How do you feel about it if you have and haven't? Yes, I have typed people's children. I mean, even my own son, I knew what type he was very early on. So, yeah, I think it's you start seeing them very early, you know? Um, and for me, it's been helpful to kind of understand things like when a kid has a hard time eating, you know, like, okay, this kid has a really, really hard time eating. This one eats like crazy and this one doesn't eat. Oh, that one happened to be consumed last and this one is not, you know? And just sort of recognizing how to help the child and not realizing that they're not broken. They just have different parts. So I feel like it's a huge benefit to the child to recognize what those last functions are, you know, those last animals and last functions where they get triggered and stuff like that. Yeah, been pretty huge. Oh, let's see, from the data you've collected, can you talk about DI versus DE are describing their subjective experience in loneliness, depression? If you've been tracking, noticing these patterns, how are they describing this manifesting within themselves? Any buzzword clustering, any reoccurring behaviors being mentioned, any common themes? Um, yeah, it is interesting that both DI and DE will describe being extremely lonely. I think what happens for me as a DE is I will feel more lonely when I'm around certain people. And sometimes it is like a very introverted DI where they're so in their own world that I'm not able to ping off of them at all. I don't have any pinging. There's no way to access a connection there. So I start feeling extremely lonely. The second thing I will feel as far as loneliness is that no one can see me, and I'll feel like my DI is invisible to others, which just comes from my own brain wiring, but I will feel extremely lonely, in that way, where I don't feel known, I don't feel seen, I don't feel heard, um, and then, yeah, if the person that I'm consistently with is very isolating in their own world, introverted and DI, then I will feel just yeah, isolated. Um, and then with the DIs, I think the DIs can often feel like they're automatically on their own road, automatically on their own pathway, automatically staring at their own DI all the time, and therefore not feeling that they can get outside of that thing. It almost feels like the DI becomes a burden in that way, where they're not able to reach outside of the DI to see what the tribe is feeling, to connect to what the tribe is going through. So yeah. Seems like seems like that. Yeah, not being seen. I know, right? For sure. For sure, for sure. Um, Stops, has been acceptance of people and myself, understanding everyone is built different, and that is okay to some extent, and realizing your own blind spots. I know one of the things that really broke my heart is that the person in my life was starting to see op as this like way of viewing the world as everybody has only one function and they can only be that one function and stuff. And I'm like, I don't see that. I don't see it in that way. I don't see it as everyone is a robot. I can talk about it like that sometimes where I'm like, everybody does their last thing, everybody does, and I definitely will talk about it like that. But the benefit outweighs that perspective to me of recognizing that we're all this beautiful, colorful, like mixture, and that nothing in you, to me, this is how I see it. I know some people get riled up when you talk like this, but I don't see anybody as broken. Like, I don't see anyone as broken. I'm just like, yeah, that's a you're getting triggered by your last function and you're getting you could use some work on that last animal. I don't see that as like placing this negative thing on others. I actually see that as a bonus, as a benefit. Because otherwise, I feel like people feel very stuck. I know I have. I've felt very stuck until I recognized, "Oh, I can just go use the other part of my brain wiring." That feels so freeing to me. I don't see it as a limitation. I see it as a massive benefit. But again, if you're not used to self-growth where you're already looking at the problems that you create in your own life, then this information might seem as oppressive, I would guess. Okay. How am I doing? Thanks, Gingerly. You're so sweet. Thank you for continuing to show up for the community despite hard times. Your sacrifices are going on. You're such a sweetie pie. Thank you for answering the previous question about donating on the website and what creeps you about the NESI access. Makes sense. That's very sweet. New question. Based on your years of typing and as a double observer, what's a few NI nuggets you can stress to any EPs? Okay. I'm going to give you a little heart there. Um, I think the struggle that I see for the NEEPs is that when they get triggered, it is that SI. And that SI, the cherry picking that the SI will do will create a narrative. And that narrative can either serve you or it can be a false narrative. And I feel like what ends up happening with the false narrative is that it starts creating a reality that makes them feel very stuck when in reality they are not stuck. And a lot of times I feel like they will oddly miss the context. It's like fascinating to have such a beautiful first function. Any is such a beautiful first function. And when they get triggered, they turn into like can only look through a magnifying glass, can only see life as from these specific wording and event. And the problem is if you're going back and you're looking through cherry picked information and missing the context, then you don't have the truth. You don't have the whole information. It's not even close to the whole puzzle of the whole pie of how things and how events played out. But you can really isolate and pick on these wordings and then completely miss the reality of what's going on. And therefore, will get yourself into pathway situations that get really stuck. And on that note, I very much started learning that, like, even though NE is so brilliant, like, they don't actually have NI. You know, it's weird. It's like, of course, we've talked over the years of like, you can mix your SI and your NE together and you can simulate NI. It's like, NE doesn't look at things like, this is probably what's going to happen, let me now plan on that. There's not an actual NI. And so like I'll be tracking and I'm like, oh, so here's what's coming. Oh, here's what's coming next. Okay, so this is probably gonna this is so you know you're most likely gonna go deal with this and this is how what's gonna happen tomorrow. They're not doing that because the openness of there is a possibility is peaceful. It's like peaceful to want there to be another option or another possibility. And therefore they won't plan on something happening. They won't be tracking that something is going to occur. So it's like they still have that like missing NI of like this is the thing. And I've noticed that sometimes when I'll share NI with some NEs that it feels like it stresses them out. Like they get uncomfortable with the NI. Because it's like a loss of a possibility. Like, no, there I might be able to wiggle through that one. There might be a different option here, you know? And I think that that would be, I guess, advice. Just basically, like, that's one of the things that I would say is um, that when looking at the NE, you would still want to some degree be like, okay, this is probably what's going to happen. It feels like NE likes to assess patterns that have happened or like are currently happening versus like this is now what to plan on. This is now what to bank on. You know, like this is what's coming next. Um, yeah. And also that like letting people make mistakes in information. That's another thing that I do see. Like sometimes if any is grabbing up patterns that other people are saying, like so even me saying what I'm saying right now. If any is grabbing up these patterns and they're collecting these patterns, if I deliver a pattern that isn't accurate or doesn't come to fruition, as a double observer, I'm like, that's fine. I made a mistake in the information and I'm okay with that. I feel like sometimes the any will feel jilted or observers in general will feel very jilted if you've given them information that isn't perfect and therefore they stop trusting you. They start believing that you know you're full of shit and you're like, hey, I'm doing the best I can, you're doing the best you can. When it comes to information, I may be able to see 90% of the patterns, but I might miss 10%, and I'm okay with that kind of flow, and to not put so much pressure on if you've gathered a pattern for somebody else and it that one was wrong or that one was wrong, to put that kind of weight on some other pattern that you've gathered up. I think that that happens for us with SE, where I trusted you with the information that it was true. You know, I think that a lot of times we'll get bitter because we've gathered something and get upset that once what I've gathered wasn't perfect. So I think that that would be like the any opposite of that. So yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's see. I've gotten many false narratives of being 10 different types at 10 different times and look back on my entire life as if I was that type all along, freaking out that I think I'm stuck in that. Yeah, yeah, very interesting. Um, yeah, I only get caught the false type narratives once they were currently in motion, and I already went through that. Yeah, very interesting. If you don't mind me asking, if it isn't too personal for you to talk about, how did you deal with the feeling of no one being able to see or know the real you? That one is still really hard, and I think part of what was so difficult in my personal tidal wave that I had is I felt like that person oops, I'm gonna get sad. I felt my little FI right here. I felt that that person really did see the real me. Um, I think what has helped me is I'm like, my mom sees me. I know my mom can see me, and Melissa can see me. And that, like, holding on to these versions that I'm like, they see the good, they see the bad, and they, in general, see myself as I am, and therefore there's a constant flow. I see them, they see me, I feel seen, I feel understood. So, um, it does help to have at least a couple people in your life that are genuinely like on your team, you know? Um, so there's that. And if you don't have that, um, I do think it would be an exercise of finding a way to define yourself. And again, it's like sleep energy can be very toxic if it's a false reality that is not serving you. But even if it is a false reality that happens to serve you, that's also okay. Because where are you ever going to get the perfect version of a narrative? I think it's important to create that for yourself. I think it's important to define that for your own self. And that's what I'm going to have to do this next, next couple of months is I'm going to have to delusionally define my narrative. Hopefully I'm close enough to reality where I'm not causing problems, where I'm not damaging my next chapter. Um, I think that that's going to be the game that I'm going to have to play. So I think it's important to have that for yourself. I don't have it as strongly for myself because I got feminine FI at the bottom. I'm used to taking and gathering my perception of self from others. So the more I can spend time there, then when I get another one of these, like, oh, you don't see me, I'll be able to see it better. I'll be able to see it easier. So I would guess that would be kind of the direction to go in. Again, I have not done this for myself enough, so I'm speaking from this is what I should be doing. Yeah. Okay, let's see. How does your typical interaction where you explain to a person who's not into op but is still curious, how does that go? Yeah, I've had many interactions and I just use different wording. Um, I'm very careful about the wording. I'm very careful to use socially acceptable wording. I don't say demons. I don't say saviors. I say preferred. I say, strengths. I say struggles. I'll use right hand, left hand to use an analogy of like, how you're strong at your right hand and it's really harder to use your left hand. I'll use things like that as I communicate. But I will say things like emotional management or thinker mind, like I will still use stuff like that. Let's see. I'm happy to hear that. I'm truly glad. Yeah, thanks. Props to mom. I know my mom's amazing. The version I see of you online has helped me so much. Thank you for that. Awesome. That's really, really cool to hear. Yeah, yeah, yeah. My mom is so amazing. Yeah, if you do watch Bridgerton, my mom is so much like Violet. It's not even funny. She feels a lot like Violet to me. The mom, the the Miss Bridgerton. Okay. Do you fully know how awesome your live shows are? You're so sweet, Adrian. You're such a sweetie pie. Diego says, "Hi, Diego. How you doing? Hey, could you please talk about the peanut gallery, the DE tribe?" After I was typed, audio TENE play consume sleep for, I made a post whose point was I made a post whose point was I needed to work on my low SI. I know, me too. My demon and I is the struggle for real. I described in the post how I was backing up my actions with reasons in my head in case the tribe called me out for my lack of reason. You're speaking to them. And someone in the comments mentioned the peanut gallery syndrome. I was shocked because I realized it's been criticized. It's been me criticizing myself for every action I make. And the not allowedness that takes the form of other people in my head is actually my demon expression of my FI. Yes, it felt like I found out I have a disease and cried for hours. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. So The irony is it's 1000% coming from your own self. It's just your own brain wiring that says, you, TE, have to serve the TE master. You're not allowed to go directly to that FI unless you get permission from the tribe. So make sure that you've crossed all the boxes for the tribe, and then you're allowed to have your FI. It's a game that your own wiring is playing. That's the irony. Now it will still back it up with all the things you've ever heard from the tribe. And that's kind of the problem that I'm dealing with even now. I'm talking about how if the tribe says something negative, that gives so much more weight to that reason, to that tribe voice. There's so much more weight there because you're like, oh, I now have to serve the master of this peanut gallery. And I got a really good reason because they actually said it wasn't good enough. They actually told me that my FI sucks. So now that master, this tribe peanut gallery, it's now demanding something from me. So now I have to hustle and bustle and attempt to somehow please that master. So yes, as the brain wiring that you were blessed with, there's still so many benefits. I'm obviously dealing with a tidal wave, but you know, like Melissa was telling me, she's like, the amount of good that you have brought to me and my family, I can't even begin to describe. So you're like, okay, I'm just feeling really bad because I can hear the peanut gallery that's saying I suck from somebody that I gave my FI heart to. So unfortunately, it just gets so much weight, and it's still coming from the self. It is still coming from you. There's a beauty in that because now you can give permission to yourself. You can still do that. You don't have to actually go make sure that the tribe is okay with that. But the negative is that the brain wiring is still going to continuously do it. It doesn't stop doing that. I know all about this function stuff, and yet my brain that I'm having to work with right now and heal right now is still automatically going to listen to the tribe, even though I know better. So it's always a practice. It's always something that I'm going to have to do all the time. I'm doing it now. But the nice thing to know is that you can go jump to the other part of your brain. And I would say the same thing for everybody's functions. You just have to tell yourself this fear, this triggering is just coming from my natural brain wiring, which makes me feel very unstuck. And because it's not something where the world is genuinely unfair. The world outside of myself, all of these things not in my control are genuinely unfair, that it is a perception thing. Because I could perceive that I'm in the worst environment ever. And then I look around and I'm like, actually, I'm taken care of. Actually, I'm safe. Actually, I'm okay. There's a lot of people in the world that have so much harder and less than I have. So I think that's kind of how I'd like to view it. But yes, it is difficult. It is still difficult. Let's see. Question here says, if you had demon masculine FI, would it be easier or harder to take the FI hits? I feel like with the masculine FI, they really, really, really don't like their FI getting hit. For me, I see it as a absorption thing. It hits me intensely. I let it move a lot, and then I let it settle down. So I feel like I might have it easier, even though it looks more neurotic. So I don't know. I don't know. Let's see. Arrow says it's not even funny. Says, okay, yeah. Also, a thing that made me have a panic attack with this week with is most of my thoughts are actually just simulations and hypotheticals. Yeah, right. Getting triggered by that last function this week. Okay, cool. Yeah, you said that. Okay. Peanut Gallery reminds me of a line from a song I heard recently. One voice says, "You're made of gold," the other laughs, "Your heart's gone cold." I know, right? I know. What am I going to do? What if somebody tells me tomorrow that I'm the greatest person? It's like my brain will only hear that negative because the TE is designed to go seek after the problem. Literally, I notice that too. If you have TE, watch this, or if you have thinker, you're going to look for problems, and if they're not there, you'll create problems. I see this with FIs though. I bet we all do it. There's not a war. Let me create a war. Like there was not a war. What are you doing? Why are you creating negative problems here? So yeah, I think we all do it to some extent to get to use our functions. All right, let's see here. Let me see if yeah, okay. Oh, this is cool. I'll take a look at that clip later. Let's see. Brooke says, having masculine play last. How does this show up at work and friendships, holiday gathering, etc.? Would these tendencies be magnified in social threes? How to use for good? Yeah, Anna probably would be able to share on that. Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like Anna would have a better answer for that. Susan David would talk a lot about this as well. She would be a good one to watch. I don't know. I feel like whenever you have a last animal that's masculine, I have a last animal that's masculine, Dave has a last animal, it just comes out and it comes out really intensely. And it's harder to get it honed in just because it's last. But yeah, Anna probably has a really great video there, so that's probably better than whatever I would say. By sending you some love and compliments. You're very sweet. We're the same type but opposite deciders. So what's TE? For some time now, I've been consciously all in on consume, and I'm so fucking done. Finally, I know, right? This will just suck you in a black hole for sure. For other reasons, I also have actual physical energy for the first time. Well, that's really good since I was a child and I'm in a place where I'm ready to be in the TE world, if that makes sense. It's like I've woken up in a new world and body and I have no idea how to do it or where to start. How to TE? What the fuck is TE? I hope you find healing. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. What is TE? Honestly, I feel like I was thinking about this today. I feel like a lot of people misunderstand TE. It sounds like it's telling people what to do um, from a place of arrogance, but really it's just trying to help fix from the fear of solving bad emotions. Really, that's all it is. Let me help fix this problem. Let me get the reasons for things. Um, yeah, I mean, that's what my brain is doing 99% of my day. Well, probably more than that. It's just constantly trying to find out reasons and trying to make sure that the other person is taken care of constantly. Now I've tapped out this month because I'm in need. So I'm mostly in my FI these days. But still, my brain is trying to do constantly look for reasons for things and how to do things the correct and most accurate and most truthful way, which is just the opposite of staring at the emotional chemical world. And for me, because I'm Savior to E, it's very peaceful. When I'm in my thinking mind, it feels very clear. It feels so clear. It feels like this month felt like I was wearing like wrong prescription glasses on the whole month. And then as soon as I got my thinking brain back, it was like I could see everything in Technicolor again. Everything was crystal clear and I started being able to think. And in that thinking space, it's just lots of the best way to do things, what the reasons for things are. Yeah, I mean, that's really it. And I'm not, I think as TE, not TI, it's just that I'm not afraid to dance through as many different reasons as humanly possible until I find the right one. I'm not scared of um, getting a wrong one. You know, like I don't see it as getting a wrong one. I'm just in the process of making sure that I am actually accurate. So I'll just dance and dance and dance, find the reasons until I find the correct, most accurate representation of truth. There you go. That's TE, I guess. Let's see, Natalia, hoping for the lives to go back to 2 hours before 2 p.m. Okay. Only if you're comfortable in one answer. What are your thoughts on the next US period now? Using opposite analysis. Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Please, where can I find your ear? Are you talking about Trump being the president? What are your thoughts on the next US period? I don't think it makes a whole lot of difference. I don't. I I don't know. That's just me double observing. Like, yeah, there are certain laws that I am worried about and concerned about, um, where it affects people's rights to love and rights to their bodies. Those are the kinds of things I get concerned about. I think this is what you're asking. And I even still feel like over time that things will get more. I don't know. I guess I just delusionally believe that things will get better. Um, Mainly because like how not even that far in the past, like women couldn't vote. You know, like the lack of rights that Black Americans had. Like that wasn't even that long ago. It was not that long ago where civil rights were not respected. So I guess I feel like in 10 years and 20 years, like things get better, things people get more rights. So I don't know. I think that's possibly my delusional view of it, but also it seems to be kind of supported in past history. I don't know. Things zigzag though, so stuff gets bad, but then it seems to. That's my delusion. Hope you're doing fine. Question: how can you tell the difference between a function and a social that has a similar effect? DE versus 4. I always try and connect it to the specifics of something. If I am making a decision, I am going to make a decision based on DE. If it's a overall life direction where I'm like moving in a business career, in a family career, those kinds of things are easier to see. So you're like, okay, that's more of a directional thing. You're going in a direction. That's a 4 direction, or it's a 2 direction, or a 3 or a 1 direction, versus how they're actually choosing perception or perspectives to make decisions. Are they going to self, or are they tracking tribe first in order to allow themselves a decision? Let's see. Salam says, I would love to hear more about projection. Oh my gosh, I could do a whole live show on projection for sure. What do IPs wrongly assume about motives of actions of EGs, EPs, IJs? Common examples of misinterpretations that you would see would be great. This would be a really good one to do a whole live show on, because I've been staring at projection for so long. It's in my NI, and the biggest thing that I see from people is that projection is, it's a lack of being able to see the self affecting their own reality, and not able to track what consistent things that the self has caused in their life. And it's a mental practice. So if you've gotten in the habit of mentally practicing deflecting the energy to outside of you, and not taking accountability, this is very default, very, very default in every single person. So it's not abnormal by any means. This is a very, very common thing. So I would say it is a practice to get out of projection. And the amount of times I've done it, I know, like, where I'm like, this is coming from you. And I'm like, oops, hold on. Okay, how much of that could possibly be for me? And even the brain still wants to send the energy outwards so you don't self-destruct. I would guess the IPs would have it very hard. I would guess DIs would have it very hard naturally, because to put that kind of pressure on themselves, they would self-destruct, especially if you have masculine DI, where it's a dangerous thing to put that pressure back on yourself, because you would fear losing the self. And that's a terrifying thing to do if you've got savior DI, especially if it's masculine, So I think it would be harder. I think it'd be much harder if you have masculine DI, especially if it's at the top. Because somebody like me that's got feminine DI at the bottom, it's a very natural thing to lose myself and have to reinvent myself and have to re-understand myself. It's not going to be as scary. It's still terrifying, but I'm movable. I see myself as movable with the feminine DI. So I think it would be just harder, much harder, for the poor masculine DI to deal with that, because it would just be so self-destructive. It would feel very self-destructive, I would feel like, even though it would help them in their outer world, I would guess. I would think it would just be really hard to deal with. But I think most of it is that game of, if you have all the weight on your own self, and if you have masculine DI and you don't want to be moved, you don't like to be moved, you don't like to have to adjust. I already put that where it goes. I don't want to have to readjust my identity. That would be a lot of stress on the system to have to go through that. Therefore, the brain does beautiful things in order to let you get out of that. It lets you project all these things in my life are coming from you. It lets you blame. It lets you see that the problems in your life are coming from the outside world to some degree, point the finger, and unconsciousness. You can just wipe it away over time. And, using those things on purpose is helpful as well. Like, I'm definitely going to be using unconsciousness so I can not place some weight on, what one person said about me as well. So yeah, I think I would do that in the future. Let's see. Samuel says, on the old website, there was a beginner series, and you guys mentioned that you were happy for beginners to stop at 32 or something like that. Do you guys still recommend this for people who are new to typing? Oh gosh, we did that whole beginner series in one day. Um, hmm, no, I would say, um, I don't know, the process of learning op, I'd have to really, really rethink that. I'm definitely gonna do some kind of new beginner series in the next year or so. There's a lot to do there, but, yeah, I don't know. I don't think stopping at any one of these is gonna help overall. Because to me, the most critical things to learn are the last animal and, the last function triggering. That's where you actually start getting the benefit of using this for self-growth and stuff like that. So, yeah, I gotta get on that. Not anytime soon. Constance says, "Would love to hear more about what you learned about attachment types, and even if it doesn't directly relate to op." The biggest thing that I saw is that there is attachment types. Um, I don't know. I took a stupid test that said I was, uh, um, what was my first one? Whatever it starts with an S, stable. I don't know, the stable one. The I'm, number 1 stable, and I think the second one is, like, preoccupied or something like that, my secondary. So I tend to be naturally balanced in relationships, but then I get, emotionally needy if I'm with someone that starts doing the detached, and that's what happened is I got with someone that was, that did the detached avoidant, and it was just like somebody cut off my legs, and it was just, like, so shocking that it was, something I had to process. So I just watched, at least 100 videos on attachment style, and most of them were on detached avoidant, so I could understand what was going on there. I do see that it is a thing, and I do see that it is a lot of what goes on is just, I mean, kind of what I've all been talking about this whole time. If like, if you deal with conflict in a way that is, I know the answer, you just cut off that limb and you move on. Okay, well, how did you learn any of the lessons? You don't. You just cut off that limb and move on. Like, okay, but how do you resolve that in the next chapter? How do you resolve that in the next chapter? So I think a lot of what that particular type goes through is hell, because you're running from learning lessons. So I don't know a ton about it. I just watched a bunch of videos and it was, affirming to hear other people dealing with the exact same things that I was dealing with. So there you go. Yes, I'm referring to attachment styles. Yeah. Okay, Jason says, a weird one. What do you think about feelings as contours? As in you carve contours into things as you process them. Do you have masculine feeling, Jason? Do you have masculine FI? Uh, as a way of breaking yourself in. So if you were to pre-process, then you've constructed the pockets for what can happen or has happened. Yeah, I would say that makes a lot of sense. Optimal stopping points are extroverted gathering points, assuming it's correct to label them as gathering functions. Optimal stopping points for extroverted gathering, assuming it's correct. I'm not sure what you mean there. Um, stopping points. I don't know. I see gathering as, a process of finding the best. So if you're looking for something, then you stop when you find it, and then you move on. Sometimes it's just really hard to find those things. Yeah, Jason has masculine FI. Okay, yeah, it makes sense. The carving. I do hear this from the masculine FIs. Carving out, cutting into, like slicing into something, breaking into something. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Creating a space for it ahead of time for sure. Yeah. Yep. I don't have that, but yes, that makes sense. Let's see, Cameron Payne. Hey, Shan, hope you're doing well. Well, thank you. If this question is too hardcore on short notice, feel free to skip it. Okay. I think I can see what is driving self-motivated versus tribe motivated at the deepest core for a person, emotions, belief system, etc. But I'm still processing and trying to really land in myself what emotions and subconscious beliefs cause someone to naturally want to be responsible for a system horizontally. In other words, generalized versus wanting to be responsible for a niche within the system vertically. What are your thoughts on this? At the deepest parts of the self, what is the generalized versus specialized coin solving emotionally for a person? Fear, desire. I would go after. I would go after the love languages because I think that that's the human need core where some of this stuff is deriving from. As a one, my main human need is this uh, I don't like the word ego. I would say it's the love language is words of affirmation. And I'm not consciously seeking words of affirmation. I'm not, but when they hit, they are very positive. And when I get negative wording, when somebody criticizes me, it's like, okay, get out of my life. Like, don't I like it's not it's not constructive criticism. I actually love constructive criticism because now I can get better on this pathway game that I'm playing as a one. But it's when someone is just jabbing for the sake of the external motivation. Like I get this a lot from the friend coins where they're like doing this kind of drill instructor thing where they're like jabbing, 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 jabbing. I'm like, hey, I don't need the jabs because myself automatically jabs. I think that it's just a brain wiring thing. Myself is already critical all day. I'm automatically self hitting. Therefore, I don't need an outside source to also hit because it's like it's weird when I and like again, I get this from a lot of the friend coins where they'll just jab and jab and jab and jab. I'm like, hey, I don't need that. I don't need to be motivated by somebody else being like, you suck, keep going, like the drill instructor. I don't need that. It's better when I have somebody else just being like, keep going because I'm already and I think that that's where a lot of like self motivation is coming from. I think it literally is just you stoking your own self. Like I'm doing the stoking of my own self. And I think a lot of like, like when I watch my son where he'd play football, there's the crowd and the crowd plays this role of like, you can do it and don't fail. Like it's these positive and negatives. And I felt like to some degree, he would be even more motivated where he would hear the coach being like, you're messing up, do this better. Or like somebody on the sidelines be like, you're not, come on, go faster, whatever. Like the negative motivation seemed to be some kind of like pep talk in a way. And I'm like, oh, I don't need that. I don't need that. I don't need that. My brain is automatically doing that. I don't need somebody else to give me this pep talk. My brain is already doing that constantly. So it is very self-critical, very self-critical. So obviously from the outside, the ones are seen as uh, arrogant because it's this ego, it's this arrogance or whatever. But really, it's just like, look, I'm already hard enough on myself. So um, yeah, I don't really I don't really need the pep talk to get more of that. So it's just an imbalance that you're seeing the opposite side of the imbalance on the outside. Anyways, there's too much information on that. Hey Shan, hope you're doing fine. Did Jesus and the other religious leaders get closer to the essence of humanity and answer the questions, how do we live? Is it related to the idea of self-discipline and conscious choice and Savior's demons? How did Jesus and the others come to these conclusions? How is it related to NI? I do think anyone that gets a hold of humanity, well, a lot of times it is the NITs. You get Sadhguru as well, or Buddha. You get these a lot of times, yeah, a lot of the NITIs speaking on the fundamental truths and principles to live by. And I think it does hit on all of humanity. I think it hits us at a core level that speaks truth, that does feel like it's something to be able to follow, and kind of seeking out. I mean, really, what they were talking about is the FE of like, how do you treat one another? Because it is these kinds of religious or moralistic rules that are helpful for the survival of the human species. Of do unto others as you want done unto you. Okay, like the monkeys are doing that to some degree, but when the humans tell it to themselves, it gives them this kind of moralistic code to go by where they're like, okay, yeah, that's helpful. I want to know that if I do these sorts of things, then I have a more peaceful existence and coexistence with the other tribe members. So it's like people hearing this kind of code where they're teaching the FE code in a categorical way that allows others to pass it around, and then it does benefit the species moving forward. How do we treat one another? How do we love one another? I think that's a lot of where it's just somebody talking about it, and again, the INFJs are going to talk about it the most, which is why you have Buddha and Jesus, and a lot of them are talking in that way of how to emotionally connect to others, how to treat one another. Yeah. How are you doing? Oh, I'm doing well. Thank you. I'm doing a lot better. Doing a lot better. Oh, look, we made it to the end. Hey, Shion, it's been tough seeing you struggle recently. Yeah. I know. Thank you. Sending you some love. As a play blast consume ENFP with masculine DE, I am the most EJ and EP can be, right? Yeah, he's definitely got a lot of activation there for sure. Does that mean I will get triggered by people almost as much as a decider? That would be the downside. What would be the upside? Slightly better at double observing? Yeah, I would say you would be slightly better at double observing, for sure. Or no, if you had double activated SI, you would be better at double observing. Um, let's see. Yeah, what would it be? Would you be better at double observing? Hmm. I think you're stronger. Let's see, what would it be? You'd be activated on D. I think you would have a harder time with your FI. That's what it would be. Yeah. Yeah. I guess that is true. Then you would be better at double observing. I think, yeah, your harder function would probably be the FI. Regarding being sleep last, I have found better results by finding as many opportunities to eliminate obligations from the tribe. Oh, yeah, totally. Turning off the tribe is going to be a hard one for you for sure. So I have a time and space to let me do what I want as opposed to everyone else. In the past, instead, I've just tried to add doing sleep energy to my laundry list, which has made it feel even more a burnout, ironically. Am I doing Yeah, I would definitely say you would have to be able to start putting like, literally what you are doing by saying no to the tribe is a boundary. It's a self boundary, which is sleep energy. And that's gonna be very difficult because your brain is obligated to go help everyone else, go serve everyone else, go make them happy, and that would be a struggle. That would be where you would never be allowed to have personal time because that would then cut off, the play, which is what your brain is getting high off of, which is still a positive, but then you get lost. You get lost, you get lonely, you get empty, and then you're just running on fumes. So yeah, I would say the boundary for you would definitely be saying, "Hey, tribe, I'm not going to just." Yeah, it's the same thing as what I was saying on the slides earlier. You're tapping out versus quitting. I have to tap out. I have to let myself off the hook and not do all the things that I said for everyone, even though that's gonna feel really weird because you're gonna feel like the tribe is gonna be mad at you, especially with masculine DE. They're gonna yell at you. They're gonna be angry. They have all these needs that you've been fulfilling and now all at once not. So yeah, that would be the difficulty there. So yeah, I would say for sure. Let me just make sure I have everybody. I feel like I saw a couple more come in. Yeah, let me just get this one here. Hey, Shan, hope you're doing well. What are some things you'd like to do to get back in touch with your FI when you feel like it's gotten lost in the shuffle? Your fellow AG needs some ideas. Oh, I hear you, friend. The biggest thing that is going to be for me. So right now I'm in survival mode and I am just happy that I am um, eating. I have eaten the same exact meal for 30 some odd days now, 35 days now in a row, which is bizarre. Um, so I'm like, that's my low point, and I was just trying to get my chemicals neutralized, and I finally got my TE back a little teensy bit on day 30. So when I move forward, I'm having to write down all the fears. So I'm gonna be writing down all my FI fears, all my insecurities, and I'm on a Google Doc and I'm writing all these, and I have all these tables and stuff like that. And my friend Melissa is helping me go through it. And okay, this is what your fear is. This is what your FI fear is. What's the truth? And having to balance those sorts of things out. So that's the process right now. In the future, I'm going to be going towards, okay, I'm gonna be moving down to California. I'm scared about that. I'm scared about being alone. I'm scared about being lonely. I'm scared about finding, like I have friends down there that were photographers. I'm gonna probably try and reconnect with some of them. I have plans to join like workout slash dance classes as a way to force myself into a body physiological movement state. I'm losing all my fat, I'm losing all my muscle, I'm getting too thin. So I'm like, okay, how do I start building back up? I'm even thinking about just taking singing lessons. um, I don't like, I'm not going to do anything with them, but it's very cathartic for me to sing. I get a lot of emotional processing when I sing. So I'm thinking of signing up for that too. And all of these things, I'm only going to be able to do the one that happens to like be right on the cusp of my FI right then. In the past, it was my plant wall. That was just one that I had been gathering, and it was one that I felt like I could do. That's really all it's going to be. It's like, what does my FI want? I'm going to have to just stare at it, and it's going to be silly. It's like, you know what? I feel like I want to go to Disneyland once a week, or I want to go to the, again, it has to be practical. I want to go to the zoo once a week, and that's going to give me a little teensy bit of chemical boost because right now I'm way down here. I'm way down here. I'm like way down here. But like, let's say I'm like down here and I can't talk about things up here yet. I'm like, I'm lucky I'm eating my meals. And it's like up here is like dating again. you know, having a family again, like that is terrifying. And I'm nowhere near that. But it's like, okay, what could I do right here? Like, what is this block? Oh, I don't know. I'm gonna have to search for a while. Is it just going to a workout class? If I sign myself up for a class and I'm paying for it, I'll have to go. And then that class will give me positive chemicals. And if I consistently do it for a few weeks, for a month or whatever, then I'll have these chemicals to work with. Okay, from that person, whoever this person is, because this is a new person, this is a new me, they can now decide, you know what, actually, I also want to add this. And this is higher, this is up here, this is more advanced, but this is another chemical boost. And then I'll do the same thing again, and I'll do the same thing again, and I'll do the same thing again. So even though my first thing might be like really silly, where I'm like, I want chocolate every day. And it's like, it's ridiculous. Like whatever the silly FI is asking for, I want to go to the beach once a week. That's okay. If that's what my FI needs, then give that to it. And from that position, then I can grow. But right now, I'm having to just heal and not just be an only toxic FI. I'm really going to have to learn to listen to her and not judge her for what she asked for. Now, you can't ask for something that is so tribe offensive that you're now causing more negative problems. It has to be something that you choose responsibility for. You don't grab everybody's hair and force them to be involved. You really do have to give this to yourself, and then permission to yourself. And then you just know that it's a building process. So I've done this before. I got myself out of massive depression before. And, back then the sensory happened to be working on a log and a plant wall and working on the website and doing the live show. Those were things that I did to climb out. And this time will probably be different sensory, but that's what I'm going to do from here on out. So hopefully that helps. Okay, I think we're done with Facebook. I think we're probably done in general, but let me see if you guys have any more questions before we get out of here. Let's see. Works for the demon OI. Let me see it here. Also, something I found that works for the demon OI is to get a pet project exactly to stick to and decide to stick to until I can't take it anymore. Yes, that's exactly it. And that's what the plant wall was for me. I made this plant wall thing that was just something to focus on other than my sadness. And you get yourself into a different chemical state. You get yourself, your whole body can start regulating the emotions better. So yeah, I totally know exactly what you're talking about. Oh, hi, Lijo. How are you? Love you, love you. Glad you're here, sweetie patootie. Let's see. Okay. OMG, as an FE user, I process a lot when I listen to music rather than sing. Oh, interesting. Interesting. That's really cool. Could that be a difference between FI and FE? I don't know. It would definitely be one to, yeah, I definitely feel the emotions for myself. So that is interesting. I'd have to actually check other FEs to see what they feel. Helps me to empathize with my mom, to be honest. Pretty sure she's TE and I'm hearing similar notes. Wish I knew how to approach that. But she's very bought into her saviors. Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one because it's definitely one that from the outside looks weird. Let's see. Great idea. Treat FI like a precious little girl and be like, sure, you can have some chocolate, baby girl. Exactly. And I agree on singing, especially silly NFP songs. Yeah. Yeah, you definitely treat it with like, you just treat it as where it's at, no judgment because I like, as an EJ, I'm just constantly used to judging the crap out of my FI. So for once, give it a break. And you just got to recognize that that intensity is only coming from the self. It's not coming from the outside because you'll think that the people in your life are stopping you. It's really no one else but yourself. Um, for me, my pet project was doing hard consume in a different language daily to make a habit out of. Oh, that's really cool. I've been at it for almost a year now. I've watched over 1,000 videos. That's so cool. I definitely see a lot of like ENTPs learning like especially like audio ones, like learning a bunch of different languages as a hobby. I realized working out for me began to give me back a sense of self. I was surprised of totally. I've also been recently thinking about joining a dance class. Yeah, like I literally have it on my computer here. Like I have it like, okay, this is the one I'm going to sign up for. That's funny. I agree with dance body state as a way to shift environment. Oh yeah, that's right, Elijah. You used to do those things which are so amazing. The twirly stuff, emotional state and realign subjectivity with some kind of objectivity that still supports a DI and OI. Yes, 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 exactly. Exactly, because you're trying to change your chemical makeup. And that's something that, like, if you're feeling low, how are you going to go to a higher emotional state, you know? Um, I think I'm gonna decide what I'm gonna do next. You need to get that checked out by your doctor. It is a disease. I'm teasing. I'm teasing. I don't know. It's funny. I don't know. I don't know what you would do next. You could get typed. Dave has a website, objectivetyping.com. What do you do when you realize that your FI wants something that will disrupt the tribe entirely? Do you have any advice? Uh, that one really depends. It's, because I would still say you have to take responsibility for the thing your own self. You're gonna have to take responsibility for it. And taking responsibility for it, it's gonna entail all kinds of things like, do you need to communicate back and forth with the tribe to see what their needs are? Do you need to compromise? Do you need to, and this is why if you're like in a state like where I'm at right now, I would not recommend anything that is that large. Like no one's going to give a crap if I go give myself chocolate every day. You know, I'm not doing that. I'm using it as a stupid example, but um, if you're trying to do a more elevated move where you're really trying to practice FI, um, some of these FIs get away with just being like, screw you, tribe. I'm going to do it whether you like it or not. So obviously that is a method that people use plenty of times. Um, but I think it's mostly being responsible. Like at one point I wanted to go to the beach. I hadn't gone to the beach in years because of op. We were just, working round the clock. We had 0 days off for years and years and years. And same thing when we were in RC. So I went from RC to op. And I wanted to go to the beach and I didn't think I was allowed. I thought that the tribe would judge me for going to the beach because every day we worked, And I tried to plan a trip where all of us would go, and then, everybody was like, I don't want to go. And they got annoyed, and it seemed like I wasn't allowed. It's like, hey, you could just drive to the beach, go for 2 hours, and then come home. And yeah, it's a lot of driving to go to the beach, but you're allowed to do that. So, like, breaking my brain in that way that it was like, okay, I want to do this ridiculous thing. It is going to annoy the tribe. And also, so what? Because the pressure on the tribe was not that much other than I'd be gone for a day, and it's like, okay, set it up to where you have your meals done for your family so they're not at a loss there. Like what is it that I was having to fill in the gap of? What was the tribe actually upset by? You know what I mean? Like you'd have to still take responsibility for the pressures that you're putting on other people for what you want, it depends on what you actually want. So I would just say that there's a lot more think through that needs to come into fruition there. You don't have to burn down the tribe to get what you want. And it would be probably having a lot more conversations about what it is it exactly that you do want, and what does other people really truly need from you. So I don't think it's as simple as, and if it is something that's like, okay, you're really damaging the tribe, then that would be something to take into consideration of like, are you unhappy? Are you unhappy and you're just making the tribe happy for the sake of your unhappiness? That one's one that takes a lot of think through. So yeah. Let's see. I used to sing to myself when I was younger. Maybe I can do that again. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. It's definitely a coping mechanism I use in my sleep state. Also, yes, I got my self type slightly confirmed. It's audio ENFP, but also it might not actually be my type still. Okay. Okay. Let's see, singing is so great. It really helps. Yeah, right, for sure. I consider myself NITI, and learning languages is one of my obsessions since early teenagehood too. Just linguistics. Yeah, linguistics. Probably double feminine though, so no masculine audio here. Can I use what people complain about me to type myself correctly? I don't know. Sometimes what people complain about you has to do with their own human functions, so not necessarily. Let's see. If you're Savory DE and it feels scary or so unacceptable, just remember what the IPs get away with. I know. It is wild. I'm like, you can do that? Oh, totally. Yeah, I used to sing kind of opera sound, but it was mostly gibberish language. I normally did TI away from people though, so because it felt more soothing that way. Yeah, totally, totally, totally. Do you know the types of the characters in Homeland? No. You remind me of Carrie Matheson a little. Okay, I'll have to look that up. Um, okay, that seemed to hit home. Okay, cool. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, good. What advice would you give for an observer trying to love on a decider when they are feeling chaotic and overwhelmed? It has served me well to do the math in reverse, but trying to bridge that gap further. I feel like I feel like going forward, when I get into a relationship again, I think the biggest thing that I'm going to consistently practice, because a lot of internal work has to go on for me, for myself, of course. I think the biggest thing that I'm going to be practicing going forward is finding a way to create an open, connective, um, communication space where I'm not hurrying through it. I'm not projecting onto it. I'm not forcing what I want to see out of it. I'm not jumping to the gun and creating any conclusions for the person themselves. I'm just listening and being curious and giving them a space to say stuff that makes them uncomfortable. I think going forward, that's the games that I'm going to be playing in order to make sure that the other person feels heard. That's it. That's all I got for now. Shannon, I just wanted to say hi. I'm a big fan of hop. Well, hi. I'm glad to see you here. How are you? Do you have any tips for emotional blockages? Sometimes feel like I want to cry, but I can't no matter how hard I lean into it, ISTP. Um, hmm, I do see this with ISTPs a lot, and then like once a year they'll just lose it on something. The strange thing I think for the TIs is that a lot of times it will be a random thing that the tribe goes through, then they'll feel what the tribe is going through, and then they'll recognize how painful other people around them have been dealing with things, and they won't see that, and they won't be picking up on that, and they'll just be in their TI head most of the day. So I think that that's why it becomes really difficult to experience the emotions, because they're in themselves, in their mind, in their TI world, and to jump outside of that world to feel the tribe and then let the tribe bad emotions come in and how the tribe have been feeling and what their perception is and what their perspective is. I think that that's what's really hard. So I don't know how you would do that technically. I don't know if you start really thinking about someone else's story. I don't know if you watch shows that make you feel emotionally outward in that way. Um, I don't know if it's going to some kind of group therapy where you're listening to others and what they are feeling, what they're going through, and then forcing your brain to actually see things how it would feel for their perspective. I don't know the sensor. I don't know the tactic that you would go by. I don't know the TE. I don't know the tactic that you would actually to go by. But I would guess that it would take a lot of trial and error, of being like, I need to get myself to a open emotional space. And for you, it would be going through the tribe to experience this. Um, that's how I see it with the TIs. And yeah, a lot of them will be like, my world is great, everything's fine. And you're like, you have probably a lot of stuff that's burning down. You're just not seeing it. I think that that's what the struggle is, for some of the lead TIs, is they're just not seeing it. And therefore, you'll feel those kinds of blockages. So you'd have to do it on purpose, which would be really foreign. It would be really weird because you're like, why am I trying to create a negative emotional experience? It's like, well, because it's there. And that's what's hard is, for so many of us, that last animal is completely invisible. And so you're like, if it didn't come to me with my first 3 animals, how am I ever gonna get to it? It's like, you would have to believe that it's there, especially for the sleep last, I see this a lot. You'd have to believe that it's there and that there is a bit in actually choosing to consciously go and resolve that thing on a consistent basis. So anyways, there's my 10 cents on that one. Is that MF Andrew Tate really an INFJ? Yes, but it's TI and he's double masculine. He's NI. There we go. Can you hear me now? Yeah, my headphones died. I just randomly had my headphones on. Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. I was just saying that yeah, my headphones died. I have these in sometimes. I'll just like leave my AirPods in just as like a comforting thing. You guys ever do that? You just leave these in. But they died and I just kept letting them die. But then it like automatically turned the mute on. Navigating things with ease. I just turned on the mute. So he's a weird one. He's a bizarre one because he has the TI and it feels very different. And he's double masculine and he's a 1. So it's just a very unique INFJ. And I would guess if you get a whole bunch of them, they're honestly probably going to be a lot like that. So it's a lot of interesting combined parts for that guy. Let's see. Any tips on boundaries regarding feminine feeling? I've spent half of my life accepting values projected from my parents, including religious, which led to a big crash when I accepted my sexuality. That's a really good one. Yeah, I do feel like I am getting more careful. One of the things that I said in my slideshow earlier, I'm getting more careful with the people that I surround myself with, because I am very susceptible to people blaming me. That's a pretty big one for me. When people get triggered by their own functions and then they start pointing and projecting on me, I get really susceptible to that. So I think it's really hard for me to create that sleep energy boundary. But I think I've decided that, especially when I'm in this state, when I'm low and I'm like, look, I'm not at 100%. So if you're, I'm not even at 50%. I'm more like 20, at that. So if somebody's having a hard day in their animals or whatever, and they have blame in their last animals and getting triggered by their last function, I just don't have what it takes. And my feminine FI is, especially right now, getting way too susceptible, which is honestly a good thing. Like, to be in this kind of state where it's so bad, where I'm finally like, it's so bad, I have to do something about this. It's kind of a good thing because it shows me like, this is what I should probably be doing on a consistent basis. I should probably be making sure that I'm surrounding myself with people that are not going to dump their projections onto me. I don't have what it takes right now to manage that. So I think it would be making sure, especially now that you're discovering yourself, you're figuring things about yourself, that you'd need to start surrounding yourself with people that can peacefully know you, love you, support you on whatever pathway that you end up choosing. So that would be what I would guess. And of course, take responsibility, start finding ways to build up your own self. Same thing that I'm telling myself. But I do think that when you are feeling in a vulnerable state, it's going to be really important to give that to yourself, So yeah. Okay, I think we should probably go soon here, huh? Let's see. Yeah, I would say it'd be good at this point. Let me see. Hold on. I'm an FINM audio. Enjoy learning from you. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you. One more here. Yeah, I had to cut out a lot of older friendships that were toxic, mental health, and yeah, it made you feel lonely for a bit. Yeah, right. But yeah, you can build that up. And I think that that's kind of where I'm at right now, where I'm like, you know, I see it in a double observer sense where I'm like, I'm eating one random weird meal a day. That's super weird, but I can build on that. And I know I can build on that, but that one's stable. Like that one's going down and that one's stable. And I think it would be the same thing when it comes to your crew, your people, the people that support you, who you're getting connected to, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think I'm going to be much more critical of who I let into my FI in the future, who I let close to me in the future. I think I'm going to be much more critical in those ways. So yeah, I think especially if you're feeling vulnerable, it's okay to let yourself, you know, protect yourself in those ways, especially, you know, as you're growing. Once you get abundant, you can do more. I'm going to do the same thing. Once I get more abundant, I'll add more things to my list of things that I'm going to conquer. So yeah, I think that's it, you guys. Maybe we end here. It's already almost 3 hours. I think we've done good. So overall, feeling better, doing a little bit better. I'm sure you can notice I'm not just completely losing it. Yeah, let's see this one last one. I'm kind of scared that I'll get a delusional view if I pick and choose my friends, but I already have a delusional view. I would say that the critical thing is to get people in your life that can be really honest with you. The people that I'm including in my life are the ones that can be really honest with me, but also know how to be honest with themselves and are very loving in both arenas, loving to themselves and loving to me. I don't want people that are just yes people, because that makes me very uncomfortable. I don't want that. Like that doesn't help. That doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve them. It's not going to help going forward. So yeah, I would say that. All right. Love you. Love you. Yeah. Love you guys. Great. Love you guys. Love the system has been helpful. Cool. Very good. Good place to wrap. Yes. 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 Love you guys all. I think I'll say goodnight now. I'll try and get this live in the, or, you know, in a little video in the members area in a little bit, but just love you guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for coming. Yes, I'm doing good. Yeah. Love you. Hope you guys have a really good night and probably see you in a couple weeks. If not, I'll let you know. I'll definitely communicate what's going on for the next time around. But so far that this is going to be what I'm able to do right now. I'm at the bottom, but I'm still able to do something to some degree. So love you guys and have a wonderful evening. And I will see you guys next time. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye.